Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second and final part of What If Naruto Was Sent Back in Time by Grim Reaper. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Always wasting no more time. Let's start the story.
Hi. Very well, I want you, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Neji. With a nod, the Hokage produced a piece of paper with a snap of her fingers. She dispatched 4 Anbu to retrieve the ones he asked for after a few minutes. They showed up. They were about to welcome Naruto when Suande interrupted. No time for greetings. Naruto has claimed the right of retribution against the Hyuga clan elders. Myself, Kakashi, Jiraiya and Neji have been handpicked by Naruto to assault the compound. Any questions? None? Good. Naruto, Neji, she glanced at them. The act requires that I promote you to Anbu regardless of rank or position. You must choose your masks once you have a clear image in your mind. Sign your name on this scroll. Once you do, your mask will appear. They nodded their heads in agreement and signed the document. Naruto received a kitsune mask, while Neji received a tiger mask. A bright light appeared and disappeared as soon as they put them on, revealing the two in full Anbu gear. Naruto growled, "Let's go." They departed through the office window, leaving Shizune and Yumi to console a sobbing Hinata. At the front gate, the Hyuga guards stood rigidly, searching for the Uzumakis. They were searching for them with their Byakugan activated. They questioned why they were here when they noticed 5 Anbu approaching. The bigger one asked, "What is your business here?" The Kitsune Anbu gave him a look. He remarked nonchalantly, "To kill the Hyuga Council as per the right of retribution." Naruto shook off his kunai, put them away, and then summoned his blade. They started to move, but not quickly enough to avoid being impaled in the neck by kunai from the Kitsune Anbu. He led his group into the compound. After drawing the katana, it was not until they entered the council chamber that they encountered anyone. It was terrifying what they witnessed. Raised boards with people nailed to them filled the room. They were all Hyuga. Naruto saw Hanabi was even pinned to one. He saw before more Hyuga guards entered the room. He took a look around. They roared as they charged at the 5 Anbu Byakugans in action, saying, "By order of Lord Danzo and Lord Orochimaru, you will die for trespassing." Raising his blade, Naruto cut down on one of the guards. His blade made contact, cutting through bone and flesh. The arm fell to the ground with a sickening thud, sliced from the body in a fountain of blood. In a single motion, Naruto turned around and decapitated the yelling man, ending his suffering. He turned to see Neji stop the man's heart by slamming his palm against his chest. Tsunade slammed her fist into one of the guards' heads, punching right through it as Naruto sidestepped and raised his blade with a sudden leap. Naruto thrust his blade into his opponent's chest as Naruto twisted the blade and pushed it deeper until it punched through the man's back. The man let out a painful scream when he heard birdsong. He ducked. He saw Kakashi placing his attack into one of the guards' chests as he glided through the air. Naruto cut his shin as he spun on his heel and swung his blade at a nearby Hyuga. Naruto got up and slammed the blade through the man's jaw and out of his head as he screamed in agony. He created a Rasengan by gathering his chakra and dropping his blade. Mid-leap, he jerked his arm back and thrust it forward, slamming it into a Hyuga's chest. The air was pushed from the man's lungs, and he gasped loudly. By punching through his chest and launching his lifeless body into 3 other people, Naruto advanced the attack. He whirled and hurled a kunai that struck the head of a nearby Hyuga as Naruto dodged a punch backed by chakra. The man fell instantly. The Hyuga's jaw was broken when Naruto raised his own fist and slammed it into it. A hand exploded through the man's chest as he staggered back and was ready to charge him. The hand was yanked back, and the man looked down and fell. Jiraiya in full Toad Sage mode stood before Naruto. As he kicked another Hyuga in the face, sending him flying toward Tsunade, who slammed her fist down on the man, sending him to the ground. Jiraiya's voice trailed off. "Hey, these clowns are nothing, but there's something familiar about how this is set up." Jiraiya scoffed. He laughed and remarked, "Everyone has a plan until they get kicked in the face." When Jiraiya cursed, Naruto saw Neji eliminate the final Hyuga guard. He hissed, "Damn hubbies nearby." A chilly voice sounded out just as Naruto was about to inquire where. "Ah, so you figured it out. Coo 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 coo." Naruto turned to see Orochimaru emerge from the shadows accompanied by Sasuke and Kabuto. "Dobi, Teme, Demon, Hubby Teme, Naruto-kun. Aho. Such language, would you want your daughter to hear that?" Hubby said, moving aside to reveal a distraught Yumi bound. When Naruto witnessed Kabuto jabbing his daughter in the arm with a kunai, his blood began to boil. The fact that he was doing that broke Naruto's heart. Naruto discarded his mask after removing it. "Let her go. You fight is with me, not my family." Orochimaru took out a field knife and remarked, Oh, but it is. I wonder how much will it break you to watch her die. Naruto threw his kunai at Kabuto after pulling it on. Disappointed, the silver-haired man glanced up at him. I thought you would have better aim. Before everyone was nearly blinded by a bright yellow flash, he asked, who said I missed? Behind Kabuto, Naruto materialized and kicked him hard enough to break his ribs. He returned to Tsunade after picking up his daughter. Hinata rushed through the doors, her eyes burning with hate, and he gave her Yumi. She hurried over to Naruto as soon as she saw him. Naruto-kun, is she okay? Yeah, look, I want you guys out of here. I'm leveling this place. Jiraiya screamed, you can't be serious, that jutsu will kill you. Naruto roared, I know, get going, it's the only way, and jumped at his 3 opponents while using 3 clones. Hinata exclaimed, Naruto, and began to move forward. Kakashi stopped her by grabbing her arm. Tears filled her eyes as she turned back to face him. Let me go. Suande approached her before she knocked the girl out. She muttered, I'm sorry. Yumi exclaimed, Otuo-san, Ka-san, as Kakashi lifted her. Kakashi yelled, let's go. Good luck, Naruto, as they hurried from the building. As he locked blades with Sasuke, Naruto was perspiring. They're gone now, you 3 teams die, he yelled, jumping back. He started using hand signals while his clones occupied themselves. Naruto completed examining 600 signs. Orochimaru panicked when he did. He yelled, no, that jutsu will kill all of us. The ground cracked and Naruto grinned. That's the point, Bakahabi. The 4 nin stood outside the compound, watching as clouds began to fill the sky above them. As Hinata regained consciousness, thunder roared and lightning erupted. She was sitting up when she exclaimed, where am I? Nato-kun. Ka-san, cried Yumi as she hurried to Hinata. Hinata gazed at the Hyuga compound and drew her daughter close as she cried. She felt them fall. Kakashi was crouching beside the girls while Jiraiya was consoling Tsunade. Kakashi was also crying in private as he turned to face the compound. I know this will be hard for you both, but remember, he'll always be with us, even if we can't see him. Going back inside as Naruto's jutsu began to work, he produced a flawless Rasengan. His Rasengan was struck by a blue lightning bolt that was extremely charged. As the Rasengan absorbed the jutsu, the air started to crackle. He gave the 3 of them a look that he would not be able to watch his daughter grow up made him sad. That he wouldn't be there to tuck her in at night or to console her during a thunderstorm. He wouldn't be able to assist her when she needed it or take her to the park. When he also realized that he wouldn't be able to be with Hinata, he started to cry in private. He regretted this decision a lot, but he knew he had to make it. He was able to spend some time with them, at least. With a savage roar, he charged as he advanced. Time seemed to slow down for him as he hurried forward. The divine lightning Rasengan cast harsh shadows on the surroundings, causing him to see the fear on their faces. He uttered one word in a whisper just before the attack connected. Goodbye. He thrust his hand forward, his rare of demonic proportions. The sound abruptly stopped when it made contact with Kabuto as the air was drawn into the void where the attack struck. A sickening sucking nosy could be heard. It exploded a few seconds later. Naruto grinned softly and closed his eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks. He heard Hinata scream for him before the darkness engulfed him. Naruto. He only knew that there had been a bright flash of light. Hinata and the others saw the main compound of Hyuga fill with a dazzling blue light. They saw it transform into a whirling whirlpool of unchecked energy that tore up and into its walls and tears. A loud boom was heard as the compound came to an abrupt stop. There was now a huge smoldering crater where the biggest and most opulent clan houses had once stood. Hinata's jaw dropped open and her eyes widened. Yumi turned to face her mother, tears streaming down her cheeks. Ka-san? Where's Otuo-san? With tears in her eyes, Hinata drew her daughter close. He's gone, Yumi-chan, he's gone. Hinata was more hurt by that statement than by any physical blow she had received. When a chilly voice came, they remained there, consoling the 2 Uzumakis. That fool, he could have killed me. When Hinata's head jerked up, she saw Orochimaru stumble and tremble out of the wreckage. When Hinata got up, he began to back away after catching a glimpse of the leaf nin. Yumi-chan, get behind Tsunade-sama. Yumi gave a nod and moved back behind the Hokage. She glared at him and said, Hubby, you have taken my world from me, now, you die. Orochi gave a headshake. He started making hand gestures and said sarcastically, I know someone you're dying to see, cuckoo, but he added, sorry, I don't plan to fight you. Jiraiya cried out, no, damn you, Hubby, as he identified the jutsu. As he finished his jutsu, Orochimaru sneered, and a single coffin exploded from the ground. A blond man with blue eyes and 3 whisker marks on his face emerged as the wooden box opened. Naruto cast a sorrowful glance at Hinata. I'm sorry, "You're going to have to kill me." Hinata understood what was going on and gave him a sorrowful look. She fell into a combat stance and started to cry. "I know, Naruto, I love you." As Orochimaru applied the controlling seal to Naruto, he said, "I love you too, please forgive me." "Ah, now, Naruto-kun, go say hello to your wife." With a mask of pain covering his face, Naruto leapt forward and called forth 10 clones before beginning her counter. Hinata briefly closed her eyes. The conflict had already started. As Hinata started to fight back against the summoned version of her husband, she started to cry. She dispersed the last clone in a puff of smoke by slamming her palm against it. Right now, she was unable to stop her heart from hurting. Her daughter's screamed question was still audible to her. "What's wrong with Otuo-san?" As she confronted Naruto, the question kept coming back to her. He looked at her, and she could see the regret and pain in his face. He was muttering, "Sorry." As he slept on her, she whispered, "I know, Naru-kun, I know." "Q Daughtries, it's not over," she screamed, rotation, and began spinning quickly, releasing chakra from each tenketsu on her body. After striking the barrier, Naruto was flung into a nearby wall. He rose and shook the rubble away, disappearing in a haze. Hinata just managed to dodge the chakra backpunch that was headed for her throat. Jiraiya was standing in front of Yumi, shielding her from Tsunade, who was assaulting Orochimaru on the sidelines. He observed the ongoing altercation between the husband and wife. "Something's not right." Kakashi gave him a perplexed look. "What do you mean?" "No offense to Hinata, but she should have been dead already. Naruto is much faster than this. I don't understand why." Unless, his face lit up with a slight smile. Kakashi waited while glancing at him. "Unless what?" Jiraiya looked over at Kakashi. "He's fighting the seal. He able to slow down his body, giving Hinata a chance to win. That's why his movements look sluggish. He's barely able to hold himself back." "I thought you couldn't break free of that seal." "If the will of the soul is strong enough, it will override the seal, making the summon immune to future seals, and as an added bonus, it completely resurrects the summon, making it a living, breathing human being again." Kakashi returned his attention to the battle. "Naruto, hurry up, crack that fucking seal." Hinata whirled to her right and struck Naruto in the face, causing him to fall to the ground. He got to his feet. Trembling, she could see that his face was twisted, his eyes were bulging, and his veins were bulging, causing sweat to drip down his face. His teeth were clenched. "No, no, no," he called out. Then Orochimaru laughed. Now, Naruto-kun, you don't have a choice now. Kill her." "How about Rasengan's sweet irony? Using the same attack you learned to protect your precious people, to kill your most precious person," Hubby grumbled. Rasengan formed as Naruto's hand shakily and slowly left his body. "No." Naruto gritted his teeth and exclaimed. His hand paused for a moment before continuing its motion. A flawless Rasengan was created in a matter of seconds, casting harsh shadows around them. His body stiffened and his face took on a horrified expression. Naruto leapt forward, his hand coiled, and started to cry. Hinata closed her eyes and thought about the best times they had spent together over the previous 3 years. Rewind flash. Hinata lay in bed with a bad feeling. Naruto had sent for Tsunade because this was the 3rd time she had felt this way. As the door to her bedroom opened, Hinata heard footsteps. Naruto and Tsunade entered. While Tsunade moved to Hinata's right, Naruto approached and took a seat on her left. "Okay Hinata, I'm going to check you over." Tsunade closed her eyes and started scanning. After Hinata nodded a few seconds later, she broke into a smile. She looked at the bewildered teenagers after opening her eyes. "Well, congratulations, you're going to be parents." Return of the new flashback. Wanting to get the baby out as quickly as possible, Hinata was screaming as she pushed. She was in excruciating pain while Naruto stood beside her, encouraging her. Despite her crushing his hand, she could hear Tsunade yelling for her to push. Tsunade shouted, "All right Hinata. One more push, and you're done. Ready? 1, 2, 3, push," as Hinata let out a scream and pushed as hard as she could. As Naruto wiped the perspiration from her brow, Hinata sagged on the bed and expressed his love and pride for her as the newborn was cleaned and covered in a pink blanket. A piercing cry filled the room. Tsunade gave her to Hinata, and Naruto sat beside her, putting his arms around her while stroking his daughter's cheek with a finger. "She's beautiful, just like her mother." Hinata grinned and remarked, "She needs a name." "Yumi." "It's perfect, Naru-kun." Flashback at the end. As Naruto approached, time slowed and his face twisted in pain as they all watched. He thrust his arm forward and made contact with Hinata's abdomen. The air was forced out of her lungs, and she gasped sharply. The attack abruptly halted its forward motion and was dragged back. Naruto caught Hinata as she began to fall. Everyone, including Orochimaru, watched in awe. Hubby roared, "What is this? Kill her!" Naruto picked up his wife in a bridal fashion while glaring at him. "Dangerously," he said, "No, you and I have something to discuss. Well, you and the original anyway." Orochimaru asked again, "Original?" before being flung against a wall by a strong blow. Hubby glared at Naruto as she staggered back out of the wall. "Kyuubi brat, you'll die again for that." Naruto gathered chakra and said, "No, you'll be the one walking off this mortal coil. Say bye-bye, Hubby Teme." Played to Shiro Masuda's The Rising Fighting Spirit. Naruto started applying dark red chakra to his body, but it was absorbed by his skin. His chakra tails turned into actual tails, and his ears grew longer as they watched. The chakra whirled around his navel, burning his shirt. His canines remained normal length, and his eyes developed slit pupils but remained blue. Hubby tensed, his blonde hair defying gravity, and Naruto glared at him. In a flash of speed, Naruto disappeared. Hubby was sent skyward after receiving a strong kick to the chin. Pulling his leg back, Naruto jumped into the air and slammed it into his chest, sending him headlong to the ground. Over him, defying gravity, Naruto materialized. Hubby was sent into the ground with enough force to make a crater when Naruto coiled back his arm and slammed his fist into his face before backflipping and landing in front of him. Naruto cracked multiple ribs by bringing his heel down onto Hubby's chest after kicking off. Naruto landed 10 meters from him. He gathered chakra with both outstretched hands. Naruto glared at Hubby as twin Rasengans formed, glowing brightly. Demonically, he said, "You fucked with my family, so you die." Naruto stiffened before launching himself. He moved more quickly than Lee did, swift enough to cause the concrete to crack. Jiraiya hurled. "The seal's gone." After giving him a close inspection, it was accurate. His seal had split in the center during the metamorphosis, and it gradually shifted to the side as they started to disappear into his skin. Hubby was genuinely shocked by what he heard and saw. As Naruto raised the right Rasengan toward him, he uttered the words, "Oh, fuck me." When Hubby saw the last of the Rasengan come toward his mouth, he took the hit just as he was ready to rip his skin off and run. Just before they hit, he moaned, "Fuck me sideways." As the attacks tore Hubby apart, everyone watched as his body started to twist and spasm. Hubby's body flew apart in a final explosion, scattering all over the place. Naruto hurriedly made several hand gestures. He exclaimed, "Total Hubby destruction," as a burst of energy blasted from him while little Hubby they could see was vaporized as they watched. Before collapsing to the ground and clutching his head, Naruto started to breathe heavily. As the kunai with the E-seal was thrust out the back of his head, red hot, he screamed loudly. When it had completely left Naruto, it hit the ground and started to melt into nothing with perspiration streaming down his face. Naruto was crouched on his hands and knees. He was on the verge of standing up when he sensed two tiny arms envelope him. He smiled as he looked over. Yumi was clinging to him after running over, but he was deeply hurt by her question. She sobbed into his arm, asking, "Did I do something wrong? Is that why you and Okawa-san were fighting?" Naruto sat lotus style and drew his daughter close to him, holding her firmly. His eyes widened as he remembered what he had done. "Shush, it's nothing you did. I only fought because that bad man forced me to. I love Ka-san very much. I would never." He hurried to Hinata after getting up, still holding Yumi, only to watch her sit up. Tsunade grinned as she glanced at Naruto. "Hey, Gaki, looks like you managed to save everyone." "What do you mean? I thought I had killed her with that attack. That's why I attacked Hubby." "Actually, you managed to hold yourself back enough so that the Rasengan would just graze the skin. The fact that you thought you had mortally wounded her gave you the strength to break through the seal hell. You had it before the fight started. We saw that your body was fighting against itself to attack," Jiraiya clarified as he stood next to him. "So, what happens now? As far as I know, I'm supposed to be dead." "Not anymore. You see, with the taboo arts, if the summon breaks the seal, they become living again, but very few are able to break the seal at all. You're one of only 3 cases of this happening. Your famous kid," Jiraiya replied by slapping him on the back. Hinata stepped in front of Naruto just as he was about to respond. She smiled softly at him. She whispered, "Naruto-kun, you must wake up now." Naruto gazed at her bewildered just before the world around him faded away and was replaced by the sewer-like mindscape he had come to associate with. "Speaking to Kyuubi no Kitsune," he exclaimed. "What? I am awake." He looked around and exclaimed, "Oi, Oni, what the hell is going on here?" When he looked down, he saw that he was wearing a jumpsuit that was orange and black. He began to ask, "What the?" until he heard someone breathing heavily. When he looked up, he saw the fox leaning against his side against the wall, his face peering through the bars at Naruto. Breathing heavily, he said, "So it worked. You're still alive." He yelled at Kyuubi, "What do you mean? Return me to Hinata and my daughter." "Kid, I hate to tell you this, but that was just a dream. I placed you there to protect your mind from the Akatsuki's attempt to extract me. What? Kyuubi let out a sigh. Kit, for them to take me away from here. The jutsu they use connects with the host's mind to force them to take the seal off of the cage. Since the mind has to be unconscious and close to death, I made it even harder for them. I placed your mind in a conscious dream, as in you would believe it was real, and sealed your mind in a barrier. I know that is extremely hard to break. I doubt even that seal master pervert you hang out with would even get through the first layer, let alone all 9. Despite his anger, Naruto could understand Kyuubi's logic. However, his attention was drawn to something else. You said the Akatsuki they captured us. How? I'm not stupid enough to even go near a trap they set, Naruto replied. Actually, you did. They sent you a fake note, saying that they had your friends. More specifically, they said they had the big-chested paled-eye girl you like so much, but would never admit without thinking to check with the village. You rushed out, not even leaving that pervert a note saying where you went. They sprung the trap and captured you, but not before you managed to kill 2 of them. Some blonde guy with mouths on his hand and exploding clay. The other was a puppet master. Sasori and Deidria explains how I beat them so easy in my dream. Kyuubi gave a nod. Well, when we got here, you were close to death, so I sent your mind away. I have been using my own chakra to keep the barrier up. Unfortunately, I'm almost drained. That's why I ended your dream. You're going to have to fight your way out. Naruto looked curiously at the Kyuubi and nodded. Hey, Kyuubi, I have an idea. If it works, we both get what we want, freedom. Kyuubi smiled slyly at Naruto. What did you have in mind, Naruto? Pain gazed down at the unconscious blonde boy who lay before them. Conan was saying, I don't understand. Why is he able to block us from his mind? Itachi replied, simple. Kyuubi is blocking us, not the boy. During the last attempt, I Brightfly saw the boy's mind. I believe Kyuubi is weakening. One more attempt is all we should need. Leader Sama, we've had the kid for over 2 weeks now. If we don't hurry, his friends may find him and ruin our plans. Kisame replied to this. He shook his head in pain before he staggered a little. He said, no, they do not know where he is. We can continue. He was caught and held steady by Conan. You need to rest. All of us need to rest. We'll die at this rate before we even extract the demon. Her rare smile came from pain. They turned and began to walk away when they heard a voice say, you're right, we'll try this again in a few hours. Everyone get some rest. And we're just gonna leave me sleeping on the floor? What kind of hosts are you? All of them turned to see Naruto staring at them in rage, chakra whirling around him like a ferocious vortex. They gathered around him, and the 15-year-old scowled. As Pain stepped in front of Naruto, less than 6 feet away, he said, ah, so, you're awake somehow. Naruto clasped his hands together and remarked, that's right, and guess what? You're all dead. You see, bringing the #1 most unpredictable ninja into your hideout wasn't such a smart move. Naruto roared, ah, and started to gather his chakra. The Akatsuki jumped forward, but the chakra's overwhelming power threw them back. They could see it as the fox's red and Naruto's blue chakras blended to form a dazzling purple chakra that was too intense to look at. Nevertheless, they continued to observe as it started to lighten to a pleasant lavender. Kit, you sure about this? Naruto thought logically. Yeah, hey, on the plus side, you'll be able to see your mate and Kits again. He watched as the seal started to glow before going out as he quickly switched his mind back to sewer mode. As the gates opened, Naruto watched as Kyuubi left. A tear dropped. Thank you, Kid. I'll never forget you. Neither will I, you old fox. See you in the afterlife. The fox closed his eyes and grinned. He started to disappear as his fur turned to gold. Thank you again, Kid. I wish you well in life. Take care of yourself, Naruto Uzumaki. The fox then vanished entirely. I will, Kyuubi, I will. Play the main theme of Naruto. With a scream, Naruto closed his eyes and went back to the present. The chakra swirled closer to his body all around him. Behind him, 9 red-tipped, furry blonde tails solidified, and his ears grew longer. The lines of his whiskers sharpened. His eyes retained their hospitable blue hue while his canines remained the same and developed slit-like pupils. Waves of chakra poured off Naruto, and he roared loudly. His muscles doubled in size, and his shirt tore away. The seal burned red on his belly. It started to separate and moved to his sides, gradually changing to lavender before eventually disappearing. Naruto halted his scurrying and gave the Akatsuki a fierce look. In a blur, he tensed and disappeared. He was in front of Itachi in an instant, slamming his fist into his face as he was raised and flung against the wall. The Uchiha gave him a startled look. Naruto quickly turned to see a man in an orange mask retreating while beginning to use hand seals. In a split second, Naruto flipped through 6 dozen before extending his hands to the man and flattening them. He roared, demonic style. Hellfire blast. as the man was flung down the cave 30 meters away by the blue-white flames. Naruto turned just in time to avoid Kisami's sword swipe. Leaning back, Naruto started signing hand seals. He slammed his hands on his waist and hoped this was real jutsu. Summoning jutsu. Rosin blade. A graceful katana in a red sheath materialized on his side. A picture of a fox's head with its fangs exposed was used to adorn the hilt. After taking the blade out of its sheath, Naruto raised it into a defensive position. The remaining Akatsuki retreated to make space for themselves as Kisame lunged at Naruto, sparking a furious sword fight. The two blades clashed, and Itachi himself was retreating. Leaning back, Naruto directed his chakra toward the blade. As Naruto leapt into the air and brought it down against the Akatsuki's blade, the blade started to glow lavender. Kisami's blade glowed as they coilighted. The wrapping gradually came loose, and a crack began at the blade's tip and spread slowly along its length before breaking. Dropping low, Naruto charged in, slamming his blade into Kisami's chin's underside and sending it flying up and out of his head. Naruto put the blade away after Kisame fell. He turned and found himself looking directly at Itachi. "Mangekyo Sharingan!" angrily exclaimed Itachi. The world changed to a bizarre scene as Naruto slammed his hands together. Naruto roared, "Kai!" and shattered the jutsu. Naruto started making hand signs, and Itachi stumbled back. As he brought his center of gravity closer to the floor, he clutched his right wrist. A ball of electricity appeared, and the sound of 1,000 birds filled the air. Naruto leapt forward, running faster than the Sharingan could keep up with. Before Naruto stabbed Itachi in the heart and yelled, "Chidori!" Even as Itachi instantly perished, all he could see was the after image. Naruto whirled around and made additional hand gestures. A flat disc of lavender chakra materialized when he held his hand above his head. Naruto transformed it into a chakra saw blade by channeling his energy into it. The orange-masked man was cut in half when he threw the blade, which struck him in midair. As Naruto started to lift off the ground and hover in midair, both halves fell to the ground. Shutting his eyes, he started to collect his chakra as the remaining Akatsuki began to launch their counterattack. His lavender-colored chakra began to pulse, enveloping his body and casting harsh shadows throughout the cave. He kept collecting all the chakra he had, but their jutsu simply bounced off him. He observed that his reserves would replenish nearly immediately. Naruto opened his eyes and started rapidly making hand signals. He aimed his hands below him and finished the 64 signs that were required as he used his jutsu. He was perspiring. Lightning style. Lightning cannon. With the exception of Pain and Conan, who were able to jump before it hit, everyone was killed when a bolt of supercharged lightning flew from his hands and hit the ground. A crater was formed when Naruto hit the ground. When he looked up, he saw that Pain and 5 other people who shared his eyes were standing in front of him. Conan watched in awe from a distance. This boy had real strength. The Pains imitated Naruto's hand signs as he leaned back. Actually, they were all imitating him with his hands flat in front of him. He knelt down. The Pains followed suit. They roared, "Forbidden arts! Hell's raging inferno!" A black fire dragon erupted from the 6 Pains' hands, swirling around them and aiming for Naruto. Each was a man's thickness. On the other hand, Naruto's blue flame dragon was as thick as a dozen men laying next to each other. With a roar, the dragon smashed into Pain and his 5 companions, destroying the 6 black dragons as it flew forward. Watching the man she had known since she was a young child burned to death made Conan cry out in sorrow. Naruto's breathing was labored. He stumbled over to Conan, his eyes half open, his vision blurred from exhaustion. Even if his reserves did refill instantly, he had completely depleted them in that attack. He staggered to her and drew out a kunai. She stared at him with tears in her eyes from 6 feet away. Softly, she said, "Thank you." With his kunai ready, Naruto halted and turned to face her in bewilderment. "What do you mean? You freed me, Pain. My oldest friend had me trapped in a servitude jutsu that forced me to see his point of view. He did it when I told him I wouldn't help him destroy whole continents. His Renningan made it an almost unbreakable jutsu. The only way to break it is to kill him now. Let me help you get out of here." She took his hand. For a moment, he gazed into her eyes and saw both truth and pain. He smiled at her, trying. He took her hand and said, "Sure." She guided him into the sunlight after he had passed through the tunnels before an explosion made him turn to look behind him. Naruto closed his eyes and relished the sensation of the warm sun as the ground shook from several smaller explosions. The cave he was just in collapsed. Perplexed, he glanced at Conan. "It's a fail-safe if Pain dies," he said it to where the cave would collapse, sealing in the evidence of what he was doing. She clarified, "Let's go find Jiraiya-sensei," she said with a lovely smile. After Naruto smiled, they departed in search of the pervert with the white hair. Jiraiya felt frantic. 2 weeks had passed since Naruto vanished. The Gaki had left Jiraiya a note every time, but yes, he had done it before. There was nothing this time. With a sigh, he concluded that getting in touch with Tsunade would be the best move. Great thanks to the Gaki. I'm going to get beat to within an inch of my life again. Just because I lost him, he better not be dead, or I'll be joining him. Jiraiya was grumbling. No, if I was dead, I wouldn't want to see your perverted face in heaven. Jiraiya whirled around, furious as a bull, until he saw a stunning young woman that he instantly recognized. He nearly yelled, "Conan?" as he hurried to embrace the girl he considered to be his daughter. Closing her eyes and crying, she gave him a hug. In return, Jiraiya detached himself, beaming. He looked around, assuming the others were also in the room, and said, "I'm so glad you're still here. Where are they?" Conan looked at him sadly. "They're dead. Sensei, they had become pain and ran the Akatsuki. Naruto-kun was forced to kill them and freed me." Behind him, Jiraiya sank into the chair. "Tell me everything." Jiraiya gave her a sorrowful glance. She had just completed her story, which included Naruto's spectacular solo victory over the Akatsuki. He turned to the blonde and said, "You've made me proud. You stopped the most dangerous organization in history and returned me one of my long-lost students." Jiraiya did something he had never done before. "It's my fault. I shouldn't have left you guys at that age. If I had stayed, this might never have happened, but I can say one thing, Naruto." He drew Naruto into his embrace as Conan joined them. Naruto, who was a little confused, returned the gesture. "Hey, Sensei? How long have we been away from the Leaf Village?" he inquired. Jiraiya separated and gave him a questioning glance. "About 2 years, 5 months. Why?" With regret, he said, "No reason." Kyuubi was correct. Jiraiya was able to fully appreciate Naruto's appearance at that precise moment. "Naruto? What happened to Kyuubi? We fused. We came up with a way for me to gain his power, but for him not to vanish into nothingness somehow, we managed to send him to the afterlife to be with his mate and kits." Jiraiya grinned and nodded. "You've done so much today. First, you bring me back the girl I think of as daughter. Second, you destroy all of the Akatsuki. And third, you helped an old fox be with his family or something else. Kids say, how about we head home? There's really no reason to continue to train you when you're already levels above me." Jiraiya anticipated that Naruto would gloat and he had gone insane. "I doubt it. You're still stronger than me, Jiraiya-sensei." Jiraiya gave a headshake. "No, I'm not. Even I wouldn't have been able to take on the whole Akatsuki and lived. I'd have gotten 2 at most before they killed me and dropped the sensei. I stopped being your sensei when you became stronger than me." "What about senpai?" Jiraiya smiled. "That'll do now. Let's head home, Naruto." Unaware that one last foe was still very much alive and posing a threat, they left the little village and set out on their month-long journey back to the Leaf Village. Itachi Uchiha remained alive, awaiting the opportunity to execute his last scheme. Suande was reading Jiraiya's most recent report while sitting in her office, her mouth hanging open. It appeared that Naruto had wiped out the entire Akatsuki on his own. Additionally, he had released Conan from Pain's hold over Hera, a girl Tsunade had only met once. Furthermore, Naruto was now a Hanyu if Jiraiya's report was accurate, which she had no reason to doubt. If he showed up in the village looking like a fox, the villagers would not be pleased. Setting the report aside, she massaged her temples. Why did it all have to occur at once? She never received a response. Instead, there are cries of fear and panic emanating from the south gates. She got to her feet, and she knew what had done it. Tsunade went to stand outside the tower and remarked, "Baka, you could have come in from the north." She was aware that the troublemakers would arrive right here. She was also prepared for them. Jiraiya raised her voice as Naruto and his 2 companions drew closer to the Leaf Village's front gate. "Hey, Naruto, you know they'll riot if they see you like this. Why don't you henge into your old appearance?" Jiraiya responded. Naruto continued to look forward. "Because I want the village to see me as I am now. If they see me as a demon, they'll see one unafraid of them. If they see me as a villager, they'll see one who is loyal to them." Jiraiya gave him a proud look as they arrived at the gate. He remarked, "Kid, you impress me more and more each day." The Chunin on guard duty appeared astonished by what they saw as they passed. Only when they arrived at the main road did several villagers let out a terrified scream, while some of them picked up weapons. The majority fled from Naruto. A very small number of people took a stand against those brandishing weapons. A man brandishing a bat yelled, "Get out of our way. That monster deserves to die." A woman with dark hair retorted, "If he was a monster, would Jiraiya, the Toad Sanin, walk beside him? He might be influencing his thoughts with kitsune magic," shouted a large, kunai-wielding man with brown hair. "Baka. This boy has defended this village despite your abuse he suffered. The only monsters are you and those who treat him like trash. One of the men, Jonin, yelled. Soon, masked Anbu surrounded Naruto. A wolf-masked Anbu told him, Naruto-san, the Hokage has ordered us to escort you to see her, please, follow us. The three followed Naruto. After he nodded to the Tower of Hokage, a group of irate and armed villagers soon followed them, but the nin that escorted them grew until it outnumbered the villagers 3-1. It took them a few minutes to arrive at the tower, where Tsunade stood waiting with a frown on her face. Jiraiya, Konan, and Naruto approached her, and the ninja and Anbu halted. The villagers fell silent as Naruto approached Tsunade directly. Then, to their surprise, he bowed before her. Hokage-sama, we have returned from our training mission. Come very well. I expect a full report from you both. But, Oba-chan, I just got back. Can the report wait? He was grumbling. Both groups sweated behind him. Suad's temper flared. Baka, you'll do a report just like everyone else. I expect it on my desk by the end of the day. Naruto crossed his arms and said, fine, can I go now? After you get checked up by Shizune. The expression on Naruto's face was one of horror. I hate hospitals. As soon as he saw Tsunade's face, he agreed. She smiled at him and drew him into an embrace. It's good to see you again, Naruto. He returned the gesture and remarked, it's good to be back. The villagers, understandably confused but no longer prepared to tear the boy to pieces, left. Naruto was happy about that. It would make life so much easier. However, things don't always go as planned. A week had passed since Naruto's return, and he was pleased to learn that he could alter his appearance whenever he pleased. When he had visited his friends, he had surprised a good number of them. They were still okay with him, though, despite the awkward silence. The Hyuga guards were the only source of trouble for him. He ended up fighting 2 Hyugas at once after stopping to greet Neji and, if she was present, to speak with Hinata. Fortunately, Hiyashi had witnessed the incident and had come out to yell at the guards. Naruto followed Hiyashi into his home after they reluctantly apologized, only to discover that Neji and Hinata were both on missions. Hiyashi told Naruto that he could come and go as he wanted as long as he didn't act disrespectfully, and Naruto left with him. So, today, Naruto was strolling down the street without thinking about his destination when he ran into a young woman with raven hair. Naruto pulled her close to prevent her from falling after he caught her, but she hadn't yet regained her balance. He cried out, "You okay, am I Hinata?" as soon as he recognized her. She went wide-eyed and he pulled her into an embrace. Naruto-kun is giving me a hug. And he knew who I was. She wanted to scream but was unable to do so when Naruto put her down. She was giddy with rage. He looked at her and said, "Let me get a look at you." Without glancing at him, she started pressing her index fingers together out of instinct. "Wow, you've really grown up and you look great." With a tomato-red face, Hinata raised her head and made eye contact. "Anyo DD, did you say IILL look GG great?" He exclaimed, beaming. "Hell yeah, you look awesome." She hurriedly exclaimed, "Arigato, Naruto-kun, YY, you look hot, I mean great. You look great too," as if her face had turned redder. Oh no, it's unbelievable that I just said that. Her mind trembled. Naruto reddened slightly. "Thanks, Sei. How about I walk you home?" Hinata nodded, no longer believing what she was saying. "The scene I wanted to do but couldn't find a way to fit in. I'll probably use it in another FIC, perhaps a one-shot." Naruto arrived and stood beside Hinata, who was waiting for her teammates by the gate. She blushed a little, but that was normal as she lowered her hands to her sides. She could see Naruto thinking deeply next to her. She felt someone grab her hand as she was just looking straight ahead. She turned to see Naruto holding her hand and grinning. "My God! My hand is in his. How should I proceed? All right, don't freak out or do anything foolish, remain calm," she pondered. Unfortunately, there is a difference between telling yourself to do something and actually carrying it out. Something made Hinata lose her temper, though she was unsure of the reason. "When I think of you, I touch myself," she exclaimed abruptly. Naruto exclaimed, "What the fuck?" as she withdrew her hand. Hinata became more enraged than she had ever been. She closed her mouth tightly, feeling sick, while Naruto stood in disbelief. "What the fuck nuggets did I just say? Oh my God, I'm gonna die," she exclaimed. She watched him blush and turn to the ground while grinning. Red in the face, he said, Hinata? I do too?" Hinata was next to stand in disbelief. Naruto and Hinata strolled to her residence. He gave her a brief update on his activities as they strolled. After briefly discussing what she had done, she blushed when Naruto mentioned that he hoped to spar with her in the future. When they arrived at her front door, she gave a nod. Naruto interrupted her just as she was ready to say goodbye and go inside. He smiled and said, "Hey, Hinata? You want to go out tonight?" A beat skipped through her heart. What she was hearing was unbelievable. To be honest, she had no idea what she was hearing. Anyo I is this ADD date? Yeah, I was thinking maybe dinner and some dancing, nowhere really fancy, but still pretty formal, he replied. Hinata hugged him and smiled brilliantly. Her head was buried in his chest. She exclaimed, "Hi, I'd love to." They stood there together after Naruto put his arms around her. "Well, I'd better go get something nice to wear. I'll pick you up in," he said, looking at his watch. 4 hours sound good? He asked. Hinata separated while maintaining her smile gently. She said, "Hi, I'll be ready. Bye. Naruto-kun, see you in a few hours," before entering. Naruto saw something as the door clicked shut as he walked out the front gate. He said, "Hey, her stutter's gone. Maybe I have been an idiot all this time. Maybe the Akatsuki did one good thing and that was opening my eyes to the world." He hurried up and ran to his new home, hoping he wouldn't make a mistake tonight. In her haste to get ready, Hinata hurried to her room and yelled hello to her father. Raising an eyebrow, Hiyashi stood in the hallway, trying to understand what was causing his daughter's excitement. He dismissed it as a random occurrence for adolescent girls and resumed reading Icha Icha, Foxy Desires. In search of an outfit, Hinata stood in front of her closet. She chose a plain blue dress since Naruto had mentioned that it would be formal but not overly so. Although it didn't reveal much cleavage, it was enough to make a guy salivate. It fit her well and showed off her curves. It was strapless and reached the knees. When Hinata learned she would have to go braless on her date, she flushed, but she didn't mind. After looking through her closet, she found a pair of black heels and placed them next to her dress, which she had spread out on her bed. She hurriedly took off her clothes, picked up her bathrobe, and put it on. She hurried to the shower after grabbing her towel and a few other essentials. Before removing her robe and entering the water, she turned on the faucet and allowed the lukewarm water to fill the tube. She washed her hair and scrubbed her body to remove the dirt and perspiration from her training. She needed approximately an hour to reach her desired level before exiting the tube. After drying off, she changed into her bathrobe with a joyful hum. She grabbed her towel, wrapped it around her raven hair, and went to her room. As she entered her room, she spotted Hanabi and smiled at her, leaving Hanabi to wonder what was making her so happy. To find out what was making Hinata so happy, she made the decision to go talk to her father. Hinata went to her desk and took out some red lipstick, mascara, blush, and other items. She first sat down and started brushing and drying her hair. She was pleased to see how it gleamed and bounced, choosing to leave it down. She put on makeup and went to work. She needed 30 minutes to complete her hair and other preparations before she could put on her dress. She slipped into the silky dress after taking off her bathrobe. Enjoying the anticipation of her first date with Naruto, she hoped it would be the first of many. She had barely finished dressing for 2 minutes when she was startled back to reality by a knock on her door. "Hinata? It's your father, may I come in?" She called. "One moment, Otuo-san," and threw on her bathrobe over her dress. She became aware that she had not informed her father about her plans to go out with Naruto this evening. She hurried over to her door and let her father in. He moved in and took a seat on her bed. He turned to Hinata, who took a seat next to him. He inquired inquisitively, "Hinata? Are you wearing makeup?" Hinata gazed at the floor and pressed her index fingers together. "Hi, I see so. You're staring to date. I'm happy for you now. Who are you seeing tonight?" he inquired. Hiyashi grinned slightly as Hinata muttered a name. "I'm sorry, Hinata, I didn't quite catch that name." Hinata raised her voice, but only slightly. "Naruto Uzumaki." Hiyashi's face lit up with surprise. "Oh well, I hope you have fun tonight. I expect you to behave in a way dignifying a hyuga that means no inappropriate contact," he grumbled. Hinata said softly. "Hi?" Hiyashi was about to leave when Hinata interrupted, saying, "Very well, when your date arrives, I will want to speak with him briefly." She made eye contact and asked softly, "Oto-san, are you approving Naruto?" Hiyashi smiled warmly at her. "Yes, I am for one. He is friends with many influential people in the village, including the Hokage, Jiraiya of the Sannin, and many of the heirs of the most powerful clans in the village. Second, he has become a powerful ninja, well on his way to becoming Hokage. Why would I not approve of this outstanding shinobi?" Hinata remained silent, being careful not to get any makeup on her father's robes. She simply ran over and gave him a hug. "Thank you, Oto-san." Hiyashi grinned and gave his daughter a hug. He gave her a gentle forehead kiss and said, "You're welcome, my little girl. I hope this ends the way you hoping it is." He then left the room, leaving Hinata smiling as she shut the door. Before he realized he had nothing to wear, Naruto hurried to his house. After several minutes of racking his brains, he finally got at Iruka-sensei after running out of his house. Naruto hurried to the house of his former sensei and knocked politely. Then Haruka called, "Hold on a moment." Naruto began to wonder what was going on when he heard a familiar female voice. A female voice moaned, "Just send them away. Haruka-kun, I'm still tired from the fun we had." Naruto was shocked to see that it was, of all people, Anko. "I know, Anko-chan, just get dressed, please, I promise I'll make it up to you." There was a pause. "You promise? Hi, now go get dressed." When the door opened, Naruto felt a little queasy but shook it off when he saw an exhausted and startled Haruka standing there grinning at him. As he entered the apartment, Haruka said, "Oh, Naruto, what can I do for you?" "I need to borrow some formal wear from you, sensei. I got a hot day tonight, but I have nothing at my house," Naruto responded. He heard a thump at that moment, and Anko, who was fully clothed and wide-eyed, ran into the room and stopped in front of him. She said, "You have a date? With who?" Brightly, Naruto said, "Hinata Hyuga?" Haruka smiled mischievously at him. "Well, it's about time. What made you realize you liked her?" Naruto muttered, "When the Akatsuki captured me." Haruka gave him a sorrowful glance before grinning once more. He disappeared into his bedroom and said, "I think I have just the thing for you." After expressing gratitude to Haruka, Naruto departed in the suit he had borrowed from him. It was a plain black suit, rather formal but nothing special. Naruto chose to have his light blue dress ripped down to the fourth button, revealing his black undershirt. Despite Haruka's insistence that he wear a tie, he decided to stop by Ino's flower shop to get Hinata some flowers because he still had 3 hours before he had to go get her. Ino was reading a magazine when he walked in. She was in the middle of saying, "Welcome, how may I," when she noticed Naruto. He smiled sheepishly at her as her eyes widened. As she emerged from behind the counter, she said, "Naruto? Is that you?" "Yeah, it's me. I need to buy some flowers for my date tonight." "Really? Who?" she inquired, feeling a little envious of the person in question. Then it made sense. "Sakura." "Well, I think you should get Sakura some cherry blossoms, you know, kind of a play on her name." "Actually, it's for Hinata." Ino's eyes widened. "No way. The day that Naruto Uzumaki asks out Hinata Hyuga is the day the world ends." Ino laughed at him. Naruto gave her a scowl. "Can you please just help me out? And keep this quiet?" Ino grinned. "Sure, what kind of flowers are you looking for?" "I was thinking lavender with a single white rose in the center." Ino questioned, "Really? What does it signify?" "The other flowers, while just as beautiful, will signify the women who are important in my life. Ones I care about. The white rose will signify that out of them all, Hinata was the one who captured my attention. Heart and soul, she stands out amongst the others as the most beautiful of them all." Ino went to the counter and said, "Naruto, that's so romantic. Very well, I'll set it up for you. I'll even write that one on the card for you." When Ino spoke to Naruto, he was examining the other flowers. Glancing at him, she abruptly said, "You know, I think I won the pool." He gave her a perplexed look. "Excuse me, all of us, that is to say, the remaining rookie 9 and guys team, all placed bets on how long it would take you to date Hinata. Sakura was the most optimistic, saying it would be a month after the next Chunin exams. Lee put it around 2 years. I said within the same month you came back. Shikamaru said within 10 years. By far the longest time frame. Choji said it would happen when it happens, but said 6 months after your return. Shikamaru, surprisingly, said it would be 6 weeks after you got back. Tenten and Tamari both said a year. Kiba said never, though, he is just jealous that she likes you. And Shino put his money on your 18th birthday. Why my 18th? He inquired mischievously. As if it were inconsequential, she stated, because we were going to trick you and Hinata into sleeping together if you hadn't wised up before then. So you guys knew all along, and didn't think to tell me? Ino gave a shrug. It was funny watching Sakura slap you around every time you asked her out. They were the kind of friends they were, Naruto muttered. After 10 minutes, Naruto was leaving the store with the bouquet in hand and joyfully strolling down the street. In the hallway, Hinata waited for Naruto to show up. She heard a knock on the door at 5 minutes before 7 o'clock. She took a moment to gather herself before approaching and opening the door. Grinning to see Naruto, he smiled and passed the flowers to her in the middle. She saw a card and a single white rose. After opening it and reading it, she started crying. It said, "The white rose represents you, the one who captured my mind, heart, and soul. May you always remain the lovely flower I love. I have many beautiful flowers in my life to tend to. All of them have become precious to me. However, one of these flowers stands out. Its beauty blinds me, and its delicate appearance marks it as unique. It can be strong at times, and brittle at others, but it stands tall, even in the face of opposition." Uzumaki Naruto. She gave him a tight hug while crying as she looked at him. She gave him a gentle hug and said, "Naruto-kun, thank you." He returned her hug with a smile. "Hey, it's the truth now, you ready to go?" "Actually, I would like to have a few words with you, Naruto-san." Hiyashi was giving Naruto a stern look as he looked up, leaving Hinata to find a vase for the flowers. He nodded, separated from her, and followed the man to his study. Naruto took a seat in the chair that was offered. Hiyashi took a seat and looked at Naruto. "Well, I hear you have taken a liking to my daughter. I know I can trust you, despite what others say, and I have heard from the Hokage that your tenant is no longer around. The only thing I will warn you about is this: if you hurt her in any form, I will hunt you down and make sure you can never revive your clan. Do you understand me?" Naruto smiled at him. "Hi, I love Hinata too much to hurt her." "Love? Last time I heard that word near your name, it was for Haruno?" he replied bluntly. "Hi, but it wasn't real. I just went after her because I knew she didn't like me like that. I made it to where no one would get hurt for caring deeply for me, but I've decided that I should try to be truly happy, and now, I'm able to protect those I care about." Hiyashi gave a satisfied nod of his head. "Very well, you may go. I expect her home no later than 1 am. However, if the thunderstorms that have been promised arrive before then, I will allow her to spend the night with you, but if that does happen, I remind you, no inappropriate contact." "Hi, good night, Lord Hyuga." As Naruto exited the room, Hiyashi called, "Have fun, Uzumaki-san." With his arm around Hinata, Naruto guided her down the street. As they made their way through Tuan to the restaurant that Naruto had selected, she was peacefully resting her head on his shoulder. "Naruto-kun?" "Yeah, Hina-chan? Where are we going?" "I know of this Western-style restaurant that a friend of mine opened up." She asked him inquisitively. "You have friends in the West?" "Yami and Jiraiya senpai spent several months there. I made a friend there named Randy. He's a cool guy. He's retired military, 10 years older than me." "How's that possible?" "Well, he was trained by the military since birth. He was an orphan like me. He and others like him were shock troopers. They'd go in and soften up the enemy for the main strike force. He retired after 10 years of service," Naruto clarified as they arrived at the location. Naruto smiled as he ushered her inside and said, "Here we are, the Crescent Moon." He chose an Eastern name so he would get his customers easier. They went inside, moved to an open booth, and took a seat. Naruto grabbed the menu and started looking through it. The sheer veracity impressed Hinata, who followed suit a few seconds later. A big man in his late 20s approached wearing a nice black suit, and his green eyes were fixed on the pad he was holding. He had a kind smile, short brown hair, and a height of 5 feet 9. His deep voice was soothing when he spoke. "So I gave myself a cameo, so sue me." "Hello, would you like me to take your order?" "Hey, Randy?" The man smiled as he looked up. "Uzumaki Naruto, I should have anticipated seeing you." "Yes, hello, Randy. Hinata Hyuga is my date," Naruto said, introducing her. The man gave her a warm smile after giving her a wide-eyed look. "Well, Miss Hyuga, it's a pleasure. What am I going to get you too?" How about 2 small steaks, medium, drinks?" Naruto gave Hinata a quick look. 2 waters." The man gave Naruto a scowl. "You're no fun. Oh, I was hoping you would get a drink with a little more zing." "Like what?" Naruto shot back. "Do you recall the vodka you tried?" Randy gave him a smile. "Yes, that was a real kick. No, we won't have any, then." "Sport spoilers." As he left, the man remarked, "I wanted to see you drunk again so I could have a good laugh." Baka Naruto remarked, "That guy can really ruin a mood." Hinata gave him a questioning glance. "What is vodka?" "A strong alcoholic beverage for several hours. It was powerful enough to keep Arrow Sennin on his ass. Pain guns were attacking. He insisted, terrified me to no end." Before their food arrived, Hinata giggled as they chatted for a while. They continued to talk in between bites, finished their meal, and sat there talking until Randy entered the open floor. When he raised his hands, everyone fell silent. "I want to express my gratitude to everyone for attending this evening. Thank you for your business. The dance floor is currently open. Have fun, and don't forget to bring your friends the next time you visit." The music began as he stepped off the floor, and everyone cheered. Hinata recognized it as Western music, and Naruto turned to face her. "Hi, Hinata? Do you want to dance?" As the song started to play, Hinata nodded and Naruto escorted her out onto the dance floor. Naruto joined Hinata as she started to move in time with the music, and the two of them started dancing. The song was excellent, and Hinata had a great time dancing with him. She laughed when he tried to brag, but he stumbled a little and played it off. Everyone applauded as they finished the song, and just as Naruto was about to ask her if she wanted to sit down, a slower beated song called "Far Away" started. Naruto recognized it and knew it was the one for them, so he pulled Hinata close, resting his chin on top of her head while she leaned against his chest, his hands on his shoulders, and his around her waist they slowly rotated on the dance floor, enjoying themselves and being blissful to be there. The song ended, and they simply grinned as they left, paying their bill and leaving. Since it was still early, he decided it would be wise to take her home now, so they headed out, arm in arm. Just before it started to rain, Naruto heard a clap of thunder while he was walking Hinata home, and he smiled at her. "Well, looks like you're staying the night with me." They were both laughing as they crossed the threshold of Naruto's house, and he looked at her with a smile on his face. Hinata turned red as he walked her to his house, which took only 10 minutes, but by the time they arrived, it had started to really pour and they were soaked. "How about you prepare for bed? Allow me to show you your room." Hinata blushed as she glanced at him. "Naru-kun? Let's just share a bed, shall we? It's not as if anything will occur," she remarked quietly. With a foxy smile, Naruto led her down the hall to his room. "All right, nevertheless, you ought to get ready for bed." He showed her his closet and said, "I have some old clothes you can wear." Naruto turned and left the room, allowing her to use the shower in the room while he used the one farther down the hall. Hinata was a little awkward when she entered his shower and started washing herself, but she relaxed as the warm water washed away the makeup from her face. 30 minutes later, she emerged from the shower and was standing in the bedroom, wearing one of Naruto's old black t-shirts and a pair of orange pants, which she had to roll the legs at the bottom several times. The black shirt was large on her, and it hung past her waist. She looked in the mirror and noticed how the clothing made her appear small and delicate, yet adorable, and she giggled as she imagined Naruto's face when she opened the bedroom door. "Perhaps we can do something this evening after all. Neither Naruto-kun nor I will be harmed by what father is unaware of. No. We recently began dating. That is not how I will jeopardize it. I'm going to leave it alone." Hinata called out and shook her head. "Naruto-kun, I'm done." A hushed voice responded, "Hey, Kei, I'll be there shortly." Hinata waited while standing in the doorway as he walked slowly back to his bedroom. Naruto listened to the rain as it poured and made a peaceful sound as it landed on the roof. Naruto smirked as he entered his bedroom and saw the cutest thing he had ever seen. Hinata sitting on the edge of his bed, wearing his clothes that were too big on her, making her look adorable as she smiled at him. Naruto simply grinned and sat on the edge of the bed, next to her. As she turned red, it seemed that she was still very shy around him, but he could wait for her because she had been waiting for years. "Hinata, are you exhausted?" Still blushing, she shook her head, and Naruto smiled. He turned to her and said, "I know a way to help you sleep." How?" Pressing her index fingers together, she stammered. Naruto grinned. He cupped her chin in one hand and leaned in, saying, "Like this." Just before his lips touched hers, he saw her eyes widen, felt her relax as she melted into the kiss, and then he pulled away, smiling. Opening his eyes to see Hinata smiling, she remained motionless for a moment before falling back onto the bed, her bright blush still visible. After getting up and tucking her in, Naruto said, "I got the touch." Then he slipped beneath the covers. Grinning, he took her close with one arm. "This seems a lot more genuine," he said. "This can't be a dream," and then he fell asleep. The following morning, Naruto woke up abruptly and noticed that Hinata was not there. Using his hand, he felt that the bed was still warm, indicating that she had not been gone for very long. Naruto sighed and rubbed his eyes, stretching and yawning as he caught a new scent that he had not smelled in a long time. Curious, he walked out of the room and into the kitchen, where he found Hinata busy frying bacon and cooking eggs. Naruto smiled as he entered the room and crept up behind her, but she turned around and gave him a hug. Caught off guard, Naruto returned the hug. As they separated, Naruto smiled and said, "How'd you, Buakugan?" "Naruto, please sit down. Breakfast will be finished soon." After nodding and preparing to take a seat, Naruto heard a loud booming coming from the house. He quickly grabbed the kunai he had tapped to the underside of the table and ran to the front door, pulling it open with the kunai ready when he saw Shizune, who was panting in front of him and out of breath. "Naruto-san, it is necessary for the Hokage to see you, now." Without even changing out of the shorts and shirt he wore to bed, Naruto nodded and hurried out of the house. He and Shizune hurried through the streets to the hospital, where they ran through the doors and straight to a second-floor room. As Shizune ushered Naruto inside, he noticed Tsunade standing over a small girl, who appeared to be in poor health and had not been properly cared for. Tsunade looked up and gestured for him to approach her. "Ba-chan, what is that?" Guy's team just arrived with this girl. She was discovered on the border of the fire country. She was nearly dead after being severely beaten. As soon as they located her, they hurried her here. "All right, for what reason did you need my assistance?" "Naruto, she is a container." Tsunade explained everything to Naruto, who stood in the hall and scratched the back of his head, trying to make out what she was asking. "All right, let me get this done. And you want me to adopt this girl who has a demon?" Tsunade gave a head nod. "Why me? Because you are an authority in your field you can help her, if anyone can please don't force me to beg. Naruto raised his hands in surrender. Alright, I will. In addition, I've always desired a family. I suppose it comes sooner than I anticipated, but whatever, there are many surprises in life. Suonde gave him a smile. Alright, I will go to the office and prepare the necessary paperwork. I'll just let you familiarize yourself with your new daughter. Tsunade then hurried off, leaving Naruto to return to the room and wonder, holy hell, what did I just get myself into? Naruto sat next to the bed of the little girl he had just declared he would adopt. He was trying to figure out why he had agreed, and the answer was straightforward. He didn't want anyone else to grow up the way he had, but he knew that he had just taken on a lot of responsibility. He simply shrugged his shoulders and looked back at the girl, who was at most 6 years old, had dark brown hair, and appeared to have been underfed. He didn't see any marks that would identify the type of demon, so he assumed it was a good one because it didn't mark her in any way. It had been 2 hours since he had left Hinata at his house, and he felt bad that the breakfast she had prepared for him would be wasted, but there would be others. Well, good day, drowsy head, are you feeling better? Naruto felt a twinge of sympathy when he saw the girl instantly flinch away from him, fearing that she would be hit. Hi, it's all right. I promise not to harm you, he said gently, extending a hand. Naruto lifted her face up and saw the wide, tear-rimmed green eyes, and the girl flinched as he put a hand on her cheek. It's okay, you're secure, nobody is going to harm you here, I swear. With a gulp, the girl met his eyes. You swear? Her quiet voice could be heard. Naruto gave her a smile. Hey, and I never break my word with pride, he declared. That's my ninja way. Glancing around the room, the girl whipped her eyes and encircled her legs with her arms. What's your name? Naruto questioned her. She gave a headshake. I don't have one. What? How is that possible? Your parents named you, didn't they? The girl gave a headshake. No, when I was a baby, they passed away. Nobody really gave a damn about me. Although Naruto was upset with the people who had done this, he kept it to himself. Well, we can't keep you anonymous, can we? What say you about Mizu? He gave her a look. Mizu? Yes, I'm reminded of water by the way your hair falls, he said sweetly. With the slightest of smiles, the girl nodded. Okay, Mizu, are you prepared to go home? Naruto cursed himself at the girl's terrified expression. I meant your new home. She gave him a wide-eyed look. What are you saying? I mean that you'll be living with me, as soon as we swing by the Hokage to fill out the adoption papers. Adoption documents? What are they? As Naruto got up and extended his hand to her, she accepted it and asked. They inform people that you are now a member of a family and that you are my daughter, the family of Uzumaki. As they walked out of the hospital, Mizu gazed at him in wonder. Naruto handed the papers back to Suonde, who grinned at him and filed them away after reviewing them. All right, everything is in order. She turned to face the little green-eyed girl and said, You are now Mizu Uzumaki, Naruto Uzumaki's daughter, and a member of the Hidden Leaf Village as of today. Welcome, Tsunade said with a smile. Mizu turned to Naruto, grinned, and thanked her. Otuo-san, where are we heading next? Naruto grinned. Well, we're going to stop by a friend of mine so we can get you some new clothes. Mizu gave him a wide-eyed stare. Really? Hey, let's go now. Many thanks, Ba-chan, Naruto said as he walked out of the room. Baka. The irate reply sailed out the door. Hinata was sitting in her room, scribbling at a piece of paper, when she looked back at the picture, a lifelike drawing of her and Naruto at the Altera, and blushed a little because, even at 15, she couldn't help but fantasize about marrying him, even though they had only recently begun dating. She smiled as she put the picture on her desk, and as she turned to face her bed, she heard a knock on the door. Curious, she went over and opened the door, and her face lit up with a smile as Naruto pulled her into an embrace. Hi, Hina-chan. Naru-kun. Is everything all right? She made eye contact and asked. Hey Hinata, I need your assistance. With what? Can you assist me in getting my daughter some clothes and other items? Hinata tilted her head sideways. Daughter? Hey, this morning, I adopted a 6-year-old girl, Naruto clarified. I took her in because she had no one. Hinata grinned as she glanced at him. Hey, I would adore doing so. Where is she? Naruto moved aside to show Hinata Mizu and said, right here. Grinning, Hinata moved forward and knelt down. Hi there, what's your name? Hinata politely inquired. Naruto nodded as Mizu turned to face him. Mizu Uzumaki. Hinata extended a hand. I'm glad to have met you. You can call me Hinata Hyuga. Mizu briefly took hold of her hand before glancing at Naruto. She's my Okawa-san, right? Naruto's face went into shock. and Hinata flushed. Without giving it much thought, he said, well, she could be soon. Hinata grinned as she turned to face Naruto. Naruto? Are you making a proposal? She made fun of it. Naruto's face flushed, and his eyes widened. Well, Ayumi. Hiyashi was reading a book that Naruto couldn't see the title of when he came around the corner. I would suggest you try to remove your foot from your mouth first and start over, Uzumaki-san. He was passing by. This day was becoming strange, and Naruto moaned into his hand. After setting the bags he was carrying on the couch and opening the front door, Naruto turned to see Mizu standing in the doorway, fidgeting with her blue jacket for some reason. Mizu had taken on Hinata's older fashion sense at that age, with the exception that she wore a dark blue jacket and dark blue pants. What is the matter, Mizu-chan? The girl gave him a look. I'm just wondering if this is a dream, Naruto grinned. No, it's true, believe me, come on now. Naruto held out his hand and said, I'll show you your room. Mizu accepted it and trailed him to the room next to his down the hall. The whimpering from the next room startled Naruto, who groggily sat up and rubbed his eyes. He looked at the clock and saw that it was 1 in the morning, and he listened intently as the whimpers turned to sobs. He hurried out of bed and into Mizu's room, where he saw the little girl thrashing in her sleep. Naruto went over and picked her up, holding her close as her eyes slowly opened, and Naruto gave her a weary smile. Are you alright, Mizu-chan? Naruto sighed and lifted the girl up after she nodded and whipped her eyes with her pajama sleeve. Where are we heading? As she fought sleep, she asked. My space, I'll let you sleep in my bed tonight. Before they even left the room, Mizu nodded drowsily and fell asleep in Naruto's arms. Naruto grinned as he laid her on his right side, climbed back into bed, and wrapped an arm around her as she slept soundly, promising himself that he would always ensure her happiness and safety. The following morning, Naruto awoke with a startled gasp and groggily glanced at Mizu, wondering. What's the matter? He sat up and asked. The girl simply lay there, smiling and wide-eyed, curled up on the bed. I believed I was having dreams about yesterday. I am glad I wasn't. With a smile, Naruto touched her cheek. Yes, let's go grab a bite to eat now. We'll go out to dinner after you get out of your pajamas. The girl jumped out of bed and hurried into her room. Grinning broadly, Naruto laughed as he got out of bed and changed out of his sleeping clothes, which were a black t-shirt and a pair of gray sweatpants. He scowled as he looked at his closet, which was filled with orange clothing. He sighed and took out a pair of orange pants and a clean t-shirt, putting them on before putting on the jacket. In any case, why'd I wear a jacket? He dressed without asking anyone in particular. It's like 80 degrees here every day. That's something I've been wondering. When he heard a knock on his door, he was just putting on his shirt, so he went into the front hall and answered it out of curiosity. Hi, Naruto. Welcome home. Sakura pulled him into an embrace as she spoke. Kakashi was standing behind her, grinning. Kakashi put a hand on Naruto's shoulder and said, Good to see you're back, Naruto. Hey, guys. It's been 2 days since I returned. Sakura withdrew and remarked, Yeah, and we just got back from our mission today. Naruto ushered the group into the kitchen and said, Well, come in guys. Sakura, Kakashi, and Naruto sat down at the table, and Naruto just stared at them, waiting, but when he noticed their confused expressions, he wondered what was going on, and discovered a young girl peeking around the doorframe wearing a dark blue jacket and dark blue pants. Otuo-san? She almost uttered a whisper, grinning. Naruto turned in his chair. Mizu-chan, come on in here. I would like you to meet some of my friends. Naruto was once again struck by how much she acted like Hinata, but he pushed the thought away and turned back to his friends as he placed the girl on his lap, where she curled up against his chest while glancing at the others. The girl smiled and slouched as she entered the room, trying to hide as much of herself as possible. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura, I would like to introduce you all to Mizu, my adopted daughter. This is one of my oldest friends, Sakura. Mizu, before I started training, she was my teammate for nearly 2 years. Sakura smiled slightly at the girl. Hello, Mizu-chan. While remaining silent, Mizu gave her a nod. Naruto went on. And this is Kakashi Hitaki, who, after Iruka Ojji-san, is my second sensei. Kakashi-sensei assisted me in developing my strength. No, Naruto, you were skilled at building your own strength, Kakashi corrected. I just gave you the correct direction. Sakura gave him a smile. Iruka Ojji-san? Naruto gave a nod. Yes, I viewed Iruka-sensei as a father figure. He wouldn't object to having a granddaughter, I'm sure. You're probably right, Kakashi stated calmly. Yes, she also behaves remarkably like Hinata-chan despite the fact that they only met yesterday. Hold on a minute, things like that do happen sometimes, Hinata-chan? Kakashi said again. Yes, my half-proposal to Hinata also didn't help, don't get me wrong. I adore her, but we're not ready for marriage just yet. Sakura gave him a disbelieving glance. Have you mentioned that you adore Hinata? I take it you mean love in the sense of a great friend? No, I mean love in the sense that when she isn't around, I feel uncomfortable, love in the sense that I could spend the rest of my life with her. Sakura gave him a smile. So she informed you about time. Naruto gazed at her bewildered. Told me what? It was me who initially asked her out. Sakura gave a headshake. You Baka, Hinata will always love you, the only person who was unaware was you. Naruto smiled. Yes, he said, I was pretty dense. But Sakura gave him an inquisitive look. Hi, Naruto. You claim to have adopted her, why? It's a little complicated, do not be concerned if and when she wants to tell, I'll let her make that decision. She possesses the same thing that I did. The same thing? What are you discussing? Sakura, let's go, Kakashi interrupted her, saying, I'm sure Naruto has a lot to do today. The two got up and said their goodbyes, leaving Mizu to stare at Naruto, confused, knowing what Naruto had said and why the Hokage had entrusted her to his care. Oto-san. What did you mean? Naruto smiled slightly at her. I swear, I'll tell you when you're older, let's grab some breakfast now. Mizu was riding on Naruto's shoulders, and he felt sorry for her, but he told himself that he would not allow that to happen to her. Here in the village, as they came around a corner, he saw Kiba and Neji in the middle of the street, and he removed Mizu from his shoulders and put her down, taking her hand as they came. You will now take me to her, Kiba shouted. Neji gave a headshake. Once more I won't, Neji. Damn it, now take me to Hinata. I want to show her how much more suitable I am for her than Naruto. Kiba took a step forward and staggered a little. Neji looked at Naruto and remained silent. Even better, Naruto yelled. Kiba, why don't you tell me what makes you so much better? Naruto calmly glanced at Kiba as the inebriated man turned to face him, and the crowd looked over and started to back away, making room for them. So, what are we in possession of? Naruto. And who's that young girl you're carrying? Do you intend to commit pedophilia? Kiba spat in his face. I suggest you apologize to my daughter, Kiba. Kiba looked at him with his eyes crossed, and Neji did a double take. What did you mean? I mean, I took her in as my own. I'll make you apologize now. Kiba gave him a snort. I'd love to see you try. As Neji approached, Naruto knelt down and turned to face Mizu. Mizu-chan, I would like you to accompany Neji. He'll keep you safe while I handle this. Mizu glanced up at Neji and nodded. You have the same eyes as Hinata Okawa-san, she replied. Neji gave Naruto a questioning glance before grinning at the girl. My cousin is Hinata-sama, come with me now. Mizu-chan, your Otuo-san needs to deal with a nasty person. Naruto got up and prepared himself, and Mizu nodded before following Neji to a safe distance. Kiba. Do you still want to fight me? The blonde cocked his head to the side and walked over to Naruto, who descended and checked his vitals while grinning and shaking his head. His response was a Druken charge that ended with Kiba falling on his face halfway to Naruto. He's doing fine, he simply fainted as several villagers stepped over and lifted the unconscious man and carried him to the hospital. Everyone in the crowd started to perspire. Naruto thanked Neji, then put Mizu back on his shoulders and continued walking through the streets to Iruka's. With Mizu by his side, Naruto approached Iruka's door and knocked once before getting a response. One moment. Naruto waited only a few seconds before his door opened and a smiling Iruka greeted them, and he sighed with relief that his teacher didn't sound tired. After all, it was a school day, and he was likely preparing for his lecture today. Hi there, Naruto. More advice is a bit premature. Naruto grinned and shook his head. Actually, I wanted to introduce you to your new granddaughter, Otuo-san. Iruka gave him a confused look. Otuo-san? Granddaughter? Well, yes, you're the closest thing I have to a father. In addition, I would like you to meet Mizu Uzumaki, your granddaughter. This is Iruka Ojji-san, Mizu. Iruka gave Naruto a shy look as she peered down at the young girl who was peeking around his legs. Hello. Iruka lowered herself to eye level and grinned. Hi there, Mizu-chan, how are you doing? The girl nodded, concealing her face even more than before. Well, that's good, he said politely. I hope Naruto is treating you well. Iruka looked up at him, grinning, and Mizu nodded again. I'm assuming this is the girl Tsunade-sama told me about. Hi. Well, the thought of becoming a grandfather appeals to me. I only have one query. How much time has she spent with Hinata? Just a couple of hours, however. She had been this bashful ever since I first met her. Well, I have to arrive at the academy early, but I would really like to stay and chat. We are preparing to establish the new Genin teams. Otuo-san. K, I'll see you later Mizu. Hurry up, if Hinata-chan is available to hang out, we'll drop by. Mizu gave a nod, and the two of them started toward the Hyuga compound. When Hinata walked into the dining room and sat down with her father, she noticed that he was deeply engrossed in an orange book and felt compelled to inquire about its nature. Otuo-san? Are you reading the most recent Icha book? As he tucked the book away from view, Hiyoshi's head snapped up, and Hinata recognized a fleeting glimpse of the cover and shook her head disapprovingly. Otuo-san, why would a person as exceptional as you read such nonsense? In a casual tone, he remarked, I have no idea what you're talking about. Hinata poured herself a glass of milk and shook her head. All right, Hiyoshi changed the topic and remarked, I've heard that Naruto-san has a daughter now. Hey, she's a cute young child 6 or so. She is extremely bashful in social situations, but Naruto-kun is assisting her in gaining confidence. Hiyoshi grinned and remarked, I also hear that she calls you, Okawa-san. Hinata nodded and blushed a little. Hey, she behaves a lot like me in the past, incredibly withdrawn, scared of other people. Hiyoshi gave a sorrowful nod, and she has a valid reason for doing so. The Hokage trusted her with Naruto because of this. What are you saying? Curious, she asked him, has he not informed you yet? No, what did he not tell me? Hiyoshi gave a headshake. I apologize, I won't and can't tell. He is the one who should tell you, not mine. Hinata was about to answer when she heard a loud knock on the front door, but she remained seated, knowing that one of the clan members nearer the door would answer, and she was drinking her milk when she heard a little voice behind her. Okawa-san? With a smile, Hinata put down the glass and turned to see Naruto and Mizu standing in the doorway. Naruto released her hand, and the young girl rushed over to give Hinata a hug. Hi, Mizu-chan, do you feel better now? Hinata politely inquired. Hey, today, Uruka Ojji-san and I met. He's really pleasant. After that, we witnessed a villain shouting at Otuo-san he had a dog-like scent. Hinata gave him a sorrowful glance. Didn't it happen to be Kiba? With a nod, Naruto took a seat beside her. There was no fight between us. Naruto looked over at Hiyoshi and saw that the man was grinning. He had been intoxicated and fainted before he moved 2 feet, Naruto said. What? Do my teeth have something in them? Hiyoshi gave a headshake. No, simply put, you two seem so ideal together. You act like a family even though you've only been together for a week. Naruto smiled. We must be perfect for each other. As Hinata and Mizu left the room, Hiyoshi gave Naruto a stern look and chuckled lightly, referring to passing through the flower garden. You still haven't discussed Kyuubi with Hinata or the reason behind Mizu-chan's extreme fear of people. Naruto let out a sigh. Hey, I haven't. I'm aware that nothing will change, but I didn't think telling her or not would have a significant impact. Now that Kyuubi is gone, I would let her know if I still had Kyuubi. However, now that he's gone, there's no use. I understand. Additionally, did you know that your cute whisker marks are gone, as Hinata says? After a moment of staring and processing the 2 pieces of information, Naruto looked at his image in the rearview mirror. That's strange. This morning, they were present. Naruto turned to face him, and Hiyoshi gave him a wide-eyed stare. What? Well, nothing. Naruto-san, perhaps, are you aware of your parents' identities? It was likely wishful thinking, but Naruto dismissed his dream after giving it some thought. No, I don't. Hiyoshi dismissed him with a nod, informing him that Hinata was available for the day. As the little girl gazed around in awe of the lovely flowers surrounding her, Hinata was strolling through the rose garden with Mizu. Whoa, it's a lovely place. It is just as lovely as Whirlpool's gardens. Are you from that area? Hi, it is. However, I didn't enjoy it there. I would be chased out of the village and beaten except for this kind old woman who housed me until I was 5 years old. The villagers claimed that I was involved in her death. What makes them act in that way? Hinata inquired piteously, wondering why a harmless little girl would be harmed. The Hyuga dropped low, covering Mizu as she activated her Byakugan, and just as she was about to speak, a kunai whizzed past Hinata's head. Hinata started to look around and discovered a man wearing a black cloak with red clouds approaching her. As Hinata assumed her Juken stance, she muttered, "Stay down." What are you looking for? She gave the approaching figure a hiss. I'd rather not get into a fight. Calmly, the figure answered, I'm only here for the child. What makes you desire her? Hinata shot back. I need something that she has with her, a tremendous amount of power to murder someone. Naruto Uzumaki is the person I'm after. Naruto's heart skipped a beat as he heard a familiar scream as he was making his way to the rose garden. Hinata! He shouted as he dashed in the direction of the voice. Naruto ran and positioned himself between Hinata and the assailant, whom he instantly recognized, just as Hinata was removing a kunai from her arm. You should be dead. The figure smiled slightly at him. Unfortunately, Naruto-kun, we Uchiha are difficult to kill by now, you ought to be aware of this. Itachi, what are you looking for? Your daughter, I can kill you with her power. As he started to grow tails and transform into his Hanyu state, Naruto felt a lavender chakra surrounding him. He knew Hinata could see, but he had to keep them both safe. O Kyuubi no Kitsune, the new one, you seem to have forgotten that it was the Uchiha who used our Sharingan to subdue the beast. Try to keep me under control, nobody's slave, I am, Naruto snarled. With a sigh, Itachi turned on his Sharingan, and he and Naruto started fighting. Feeling his body freeze, Naruto sprang forward and started to sign hand Celis, glaring at Itachi as the Uchiha advanced. Naruto-kun, now I cannot allow you to ruin my plans. Phoenix Jutsu. Rising fire is prohibited art. With Byakugan active, Hinata screamed in agony and grief as she charged Itachi, but he didn't even dodge. Instead, he raised a single hand and deflected the attack, spinning around with enough momentum to connect with the back of Hinata's head, lifting her up and hurling her away. Mizu and Hinata watched as a blue-white fireball flew at Naruto, and Hinata cried out as the fireball struck, flinging Naruto into a nearby stone wall. How poetic, Itachi thought, observing the pair. When he sensed a fierce killer intent directed at him, he moved forward, raised an eyebrow, and turned to see Mizu standing upright with her head held low, a white chakra forming around her, resembling the outline of a white eight-tailed dragon, and her gentle voice speaking with icy fury. You caused my Okawa-san and Otuo-san pain, you die for that. She let out a roar and then abruptly disappeared. Just before her fist struck his stomach, Itachi blinked, his eyes widened as his breath left him, and he stumbled before looking up to see her come down in an overheaded satrike, smashing him into the ground. As he couldn't move quickly enough to avoid the blow, he glanced up and saw her coming forward again, and he quickly flashed through hand signs. Grand Fireball Jutsu in the fire style. A huge ball of fire erupted from him and collided with her. When the smoke cleared and he saw her standing there, glaring at him, he let out a sigh. How is this possible? As she raised her hand, he asked quietly. Fascinated, he watched as the chakra claw swung toward him. Itachi attempted to avoid it, but the claw struck him, sending him to the ground, but he was able to break free and get to his feet. I no longer have time to play with you. As Hiashi and several Hyugas arrived, he said, but be warned, I will be back to get you, Mizu-chan. He vanished in a swirl of leaves, and when she turned around, she saw Naruto and Hinata running toward her. When Naruto noticed tears welling up in his daughter's eyes, he fell in front of her. Who am I? Before she fainted, she asked in horror. Before she could fall, Naruto grabbed her and raised her, sighing as he turned to face Hinata. Hinata, I would like you to accompany me. You should hear this. After giving him a nod, Hinata trailed him home. When Mizu opened her eyes, Naruto was sitting next to her, grinning. You're conscious, excellent, Otuo-san? How did I end up? She sat up and asked. Naruto gave her a sorrowful glance. Mizu, ever ponder why you were despised in your village? She gave a head nod. Well, I understand why. As you can see, someone sealed a demon inside of you. As he watched her face go horrified, he said, now, don't worry, you're not the demon. You are you. It can't take control of you because of the seal. Never forget, you are not the prisoner. You are the jailer. Mizu fell silent as the tears started to fall, and Naruto looked at Hinata, who had her hand over her mouth. If it helps you feel better, Mizu-chan, I was also a container prior to my recent fusion with Kyuubi no Kitsune. Mizu stared at him, still crying, believing he was merely saying things to cheer her up. Prove it. After nodding and focusing, Naruto gradually transformed into his Hanyu appearance. He heard a gasp and turned to see Hinata with both hands over her mouth and her eyes wide. Naruto turned back to Mizu and saw her getting out of bed and reaching for one of his tails, giving it a slight tug before staring at him in awe. Naruto went back to picking her up and giving her a hug. You see? And don't be concerned whatever happens, I will always love you. Nothing can alter the fact that you are my daughter. Mizu gave him a tight neck hug. Naruto felt someone else embrace him. He turned to see Hinata encircling him with her arms. Oh, Naruto, I would have spoken up sooner if I had known. She gave him a tearful look, and he smiled back. As he gave her a gentle kiss, he remarked, the best things take time. Even as they went to sleep, they continued to haunt each other for the remainder of the night. Standing in a cheerful-looking garden with birds chirping and the sun shining brightly, Mizu gazed around her in fascination. Taking in the sights in front of her, the garden was absolutely breathtaking. Aren't they lovely? Behind her, a gentle voice spoke. A light blue dragon the size of a dog with 8 tails was approaching her when Mizu turned and stepped back in terror, causing the dragon to laugh. "Don't be afraid, I am not here to do you any harm." It sat in front of her and said, "In fact, consider me your tenant." Mizu whispered, "You're the demon inside me." The dragon gave her a scowl. "Don't call me that, please, it's disrespectful. I didn't refer to myself as a demon, I would rather consider myself a guardian." "What is a guardian of?" It replied simply, "Of what I believe needs protection." Mizu gazed in awe at the dragon. "What's your name?" The dragon grinned. "I've been referred to as Hachibi no Ryu, however, call me Kaze," Kaze said, bowing to her. Okay. Kaze-san." Kaze glanced briefly behind him before turning back to Mizu. "Unfortunately, I must end our conversation now that you're waking up. I can only talk to you when you're unconscious or actively seek me out in a few days. We will speak once more, be careful, Mizu." As the garden disappeared and the morning sun filled her vision, Mizu watched. "Come on," Naruto moaned as he heard the steady pounding on his front door, slowly opened his eyes, and cursed whoever it was for their poor timing. He sat up and looked around, and in his half-conscious state, he started to reach for his blanket when his hand touched something soft but firm. At the same time, looking over, confused, he saw that his hand was on Hinata's chest, and he yanked it away as if it had been shocked by electricity. Naruto turned to leave the bed when he saw Mizu lying next to him, curled up in a ball, and started to freak out when he recognized the voice at the door. "Naruto! Get the fucking door open!" Neji shouted. Naruto nearly flew to the front door after sliding to the edge of the bed, and when he opened it, he saw a distraught Neji. "Naruto! Many thanks, Kami, hurry and join me." "Wait a minute, I'll get the girls." "All right, but move quickly, you're needed now because of something that happened." After nodding, Naruto hurried into the bedroom and shook Hinata gently awake, causing her eyes to open gradually as she smiled at him. "Good morning." She leaned forward to plant a kiss, but Naruto intervened. "We must move quickly, as much as I would like to. Neji requires our presence." Hinata sat up and nodded her head. Looking down at her clothes, she was both grateful and disappointed that she had fallen asleep fully dressed. She turned to see him cradling Mizu in his arms, and although the girl groaned a little, she was still fast asleep. He nodded to Hinata, and the two of them left the room for the front door, where they discovered Shikamaru had joined Neji, along with Ino, Sakura, Shino, and Choji. "All right, that covers everyone, come on." Leaping onto a nearby roof, Shikamaru uttered those words. Naruto left Mizu in Hinata's arms and hurried to talk to Shikamaru, while everyone else followed him as he left for the hospital, not the Hokage tower. "What is happening, Shikamaru?" Shikamaru gave him a quick look. "The Hokage is in trouble." "What are you saying?" Naruto made a demand. "Last night, she unexpectedly fell ill. As far as we can tell, it's due to a new virus that we don't know anything about. Despite this, she has labeled it the O virus." Naruto turned back to Sakura after hearing a sharp intake of breath. "The virus Orochimaru is spreading is that one if she's infected," she said, her eyes watering, her voice trailing off. "She'll what?" "Sakura, what will happen to her?" Panicked, Naruto asked her. She looked at him sorrowfully, and he saw the tears streaming down her pale face. "She'll die. I apologize, however. Hokage-sama has asked that Naruto-sama and clan heads be the only ones allowed inside." Outside of Tsunade's room, the group stood irritably in front of the Anbu. Naruto nodded and closed the door behind him with a gentle click. He turned around and saw that all of the clan heads were present, including the Aburame, Akamachi, Haruno, and Hyuga, to mention a few of them. The fathers of Naruto's friends smiled and nodded curtly, while the others looked at him with disgust. He noticed that his supporters accounted for well over half of the clan heads. "Gaki, she smiled at him and said, "Nice of you to join us." The leader of a smaller clan, one of the members, came forward. Respectfully, "Hokage-sama, why is he in this place?" he asked, glaring at Naruto as usual. Pointingly, she stated, "He is here because he is the one I chose as my successor." The same man gave her a startled look as the room fell silent. "You're kidding, surely, after his nature I couldn't accept it, and I won't. There must be another." Tsunade glared at the man, her temper erupting. "In this village, this boy is the strongest shinobi. Do you not believe this?" "Well, no, but, and do you not acknowledge that he has repeatedly saved this village at considerable personal risk?" "No, but, additionally, do you deny that he defeated the Akatsuki on his own? Or that Jiraiya of the Sannin and Kakashi Hitaki have both trained him?" "No, I don't. Hokage-sama, he is a demon, though." "I am not a demon. I do possess demon-like traits, yes. I possess demon power as well. Naruto shot at him, but I am no demon. The man was about to say something when Jiraiya stormed in through the window, furious. I apologize? Did you just offend my pupil? Menacingly, he asked. With his hands raised in front of him, the man gulped and took a step back. Lord Jiraiya. No, I wasn't. Amusing. Jiraiya turned to Suonde and muttered, it sounded like it. I apologize for being late. I just got done pursuing Itachi. Unfortunately, he is no longer there. Suonde nodded, then had a coughing fit, coughing up blood after hacking and wheezing, then closing her eyes and leaning back in her bed with a trembling hand up to her eyes. She used what strength she had left to count the hands and said softly, all those for appointing Naruto Uzumaki as the next Hokage, please raise your hand. The Hokage grinned a little as Naruto turned to see that more than half of the Hyuga, Aburame, Akamachi, Nara, Yamanaka, Haruno, and Sarutobi had raised their hands. Everyone against. The Hokage grinned and turned to face Naruto, the color fading from her face as the other five lifted their hands and cast a sour look around them, knowing they had lost. All right, Gaki, you succeeded. You will succeed me as Rokudame Hokage after I leave, she said. Congratulations, Naruto-kun. Grinning, Naruto hurried over to give her a Hyuga, not of the Hokage, but of the woman who had taken on the role of mother to him. Thank you, Okawa-san. Tears were streaming down his face as he spoke. Suonde, who was also crying, gave him a tight hug. You're very welcome, Masuko. Make me proud, she muttered. Yes, I will. Hinata came over and put her free arm around Naruto, who was wiping his eyes on his sleeve as he followed the clan heads out of the room. Naruto-kun, are you alright? He smiled at her. Yes, I am Sei. How about we spend the remainder of the day together, Mizu, you, and me? Hey, what about the Hokage, though? Is she alright? Sakura reappeared, grinning, around the corner. She will be alright. The O-virus is not present in her, only the flu. Astonished, Naruto shook his head. Data doctors are said to make the worst patients. Sakura scowled at him. What does that signify, then? That you guys always play things up, Bekwase. You think you can diagnose yourself. Uzumaki. Naruto, you have no right to make fun of me or other medical professionals. You would be dead without us. Not at all, not with my friend's assistance. Oh, your healing speed is insane. Take caution, it won't work out one day, and you'll need my assistance. Do you have that, sir? She poked a thumb into his chest and asked. Naruto took a step back and massaged his chest. He looked at Hinata and nodded toward the door, saying, Hi, Sakura. He called over his shoulder. Later, it was a calm day in the Leaf Village, which had been comparatively quiet after Naruto returned 2 years ago. He and Hinata had been dating happily for the past 2 years, and Mizu was preparing to enroll in the academy this year. Naruto was walking calmly down the street today, wearing his Jonin vest with pride so that everyone could see him. He had only made Jonin 2 weeks ago, and already he was preparing to start choosing the people he wanted for his team at the end of the school year. Naruto glanced off into the distance, not even taking in what he saw, as the little brown-haired girl looked up to him with her 8-year-old smile. Otuo-san, today is going to be fantastic. Well? Yes, indeed, he smiled and said, today is going to be fantastic. Mizu scowled at him and attempted to get his attention. He had a plan for the day and hoped it wouldn't fall through at all. He mentally scowled when he reminded himself to avoid Kiba today. The man had grown cold and distant from Naruto over the years, and he had even stopped talking to him outside of missions or meetings. He sighed. Why did Kiba think he had any claim to Hinata? He knew how she felt for Naruto, and he had no idea that he had any feelings for her. To Otuo-san, Earth, she said, school sign at 12 o'clock, right before Naruto entered. He stepped back from the sign, rubbing his nose and muttering, shit. Oh, she said disappointedly, you used a foul word. With a sigh, Naruto circled the sign. I understand. When I get home, I'll complete the 500 push-ups. Gosh. That is a genuine of hard work's youthful spirit, a loud voice from nearby said. Naruto turned to see 2 shinobi wearing green spandex approaching him while holding hands. Hi. Lee-san. Guys, Sensei. Guys smiled at Naruto. Ah, the student of my rival Naruto-sama, how are you today, your youth? Just dropping my daughter off at the academy for her first day. Guy jumped up and landed on his feet, grinning at them while Lee did the same. Oh, I understand a young person's journey to become a shinobi is about to begin. What's her name? Guy asked, his teeth pinging as he smiled at Mizu. For the first time in months, Mizu retreated behind Naruto. She whispered, so that only Naruto could hear, he bleaches his teeth. He shook his head and smiled. Lee lowered himself, smiled slightly at the girl, and spoke to her in a gentle, loving voice. Greetings. Mizu-chan, how are you today? Hello. Lee-san, I'm alright. Aside from Hinata. Lee was one of the few people Mizu felt at ease with. Lee ruffled her hair and laughed. Mizu-chan. That's the spirit. You will become a great shinobi like your Otuo-san if you continue other than the Kazekage and my sensei. He is the only man who could defeat me in combat. Whoa, however, you're very strong, Mizu remarked. Hey, however, I am limited to using taijutsu. However, Naruto is practically on par with me in taijutsu. Mizu proudly admired Naruto. My Otuo-san is that. I wish to grow as strong as you and Okawa-san. After Lee walked back to Guy, both of them turned to stare at Naruto in bewilderment. Okawa-san? Together, they posed the question, Hey Hinata, Okawa-san. She's with Otuo-san, Mizu declared with pride. Oh yes, exactly, trying to recall, Lee remarked. I heard Choji mention that at the Christmas party last year. Naruto stared at him in disbelief. How could you have been unaware? It's been 2 years since we started dating, everyone is aware. I don't pay attention to other people, I trust my source. I must, however, congratulate you, late Hinata is a lovely woman who will bring you great joy. You must also bring her joy, Lee remarked with a smile. Hey, Mizu will be late for school, so we must leave. As they turned the corner and the academy came into view, Mizu glanced at Naruto and they parted ways with a wave, or in the case of Lee and Guy, a run into a sunset. Otuo-san? How can there be a sunset in the morning? I'm not sure. Mizu-chan, I'm not sure. As they got closer to the Ninja Academy, Naruto looked down at his daughter, who was staring at it with excitement and hope. Naruto and Mizu paused at the front dormitory, where Naruto crouchingly made eye contact with a bewildered Mizu. Alright, Mizu-chan, alright. I want you to be good today, and today, I want you to pay attention to your teacher. I mean, pay attention, they will impart knowledge and other practical skills necessary to become a shinobi. Try to make a friend as well. Mizu tilted her head ever so slightly. I swear to Oto-san, can I leave right now? The bell may have just rung. Naruto could indeed hear the first bell ringing to begin class. Alright, most likely. I won't be here to come get you, I'll be rushing around gathering supplies for a 3-day mission that I need to prepare for. Ask Aruka to drive you home if Lee or Hinata are unable to come get you. Additionally, don't share your secret with anyone just yet, he whispered to her. But why? Mizu, I promised to tell you after you become a shinobi. Why you can't tell anyone? She remarked, but you told Okawa-san. Hey, I did because I trust her with my life and I love her. I was confident that the news wouldn't negatively affect her. If she did, she wouldn't be the Hinata I fell in love with. Go to class now, Naruto said, embracing her. K, goodbye. Otuo-san, I'll see you at home, Mizu said as she hurried inside the building to avoid being noted as late. Naruto shook his head and went to the Hyuga compound for his meeting with Hiyashi, knowing that if this went well today, his life would be so much easier. He watched her go with sadness, realizing that this must be how all parents feel, watching their children leave them behind and go off without them. Mizu walked into the classroom, nervous about her first day of school. She knew she had nothing really troublesome to worry about. Her Okawa-san had taught her how to read and write really well, and her Otuo-san had taught her some basic taijutsu and had even taught her how to do a very powerful jutsu. He had warned her to be careful with using it, only that she should use it only if necessary. So, she pushed her butterflies aside and walked up the aisle between the desk, walking up to the top row and sitting Dwan in the center section. She could see her classmates already sitting next to those they knew and happily chatting away. Mizu reached into her bag and pulled out a small book entitled Intermediate Taijutsu Techniques and began to read. She hadn't noticed 2 others approach her until they were next to her. She closed her book and looked up to see who they were and saw that they were twins, Inuzukas, from the way they smelled, and they looked mad. Mizu brushed her bangs out of her eyes and set her book down, looking at them pallidly. Could I assist you guys? Yes, the person on the right sneered. You can get that filthy father of yours away from our cousin's future wife. Mizu felt her temper flare, but she recalled that Okawa-san had told her to remain composed when she was upset, so she calmed herself without expressing her anger at the remark. So, your cousins from Kiba? I'm glad to have met you. However, I am unable and unwilling to separate from Otuo-san and Hinata. Okawa-san, it would be detrimental to everyone. Anger on his face, the twin in the blue jacket began to move forward. Listen here, you little. He was cut off by a shuriken flying past him, and as he and his twin in the black jacket searched for the person who had thrown it, they spotted a young Hyuga girl, perhaps 8 years old, and another black-haired boy from whom they did not know the origin, who twirled a kunai knife on his outstretched index finger while observing them coolly. I'd suggest you not continue that sentence, mutt, or I'll neuter you both. He got a snort from the person wearing the blue jacket. Are you going to join forces with that weak little Hyuga to fight us? Pardon me. Mizu realized that he had erred and sensed the young Hyuga's anger. Although she appeared fragile, Mizu had discovered that appearances could deceive, such as when Hinata had sent Kiba to the hospital for disparaging Mizu and Naruto. Mizu got up and moved to stand next to the two newcomers, facing the Inuzukas, appearing composed but bracing herself in case she needed to use that jutsu. Inuzuka, I'd listen to what you have to say. She has the potential to seriously harm you if she is like Hinata Okawa-san. Anyway, who asked? Like that useless loser of a father of yours, you are nothing more than garbage. Mizu snapped at that remark. She snatched the kunai from the boy and disappeared in a burst of speed, appearing behind the Inuzuka with the kunai pressed to his throat. The Inuzuka let out a terrified cry as his twin took a step back and pulled a practice shuriken from his pouch, intending to throw it at Mizu's head, which was uncovered so she could see where the Inuzuka's throat was so she wouldn't kill him. When the dark-haired boy who had thrown the first kunai appeared behind the second Inuzuka with a second one at his throat, his left hand in his pocket as he calmly looked at Mizu, the Hyuga stepped forward, cracking her knuckles. Mizu realized that the entire classroom had fallen silent and was watching the scene in awe. The Hyuga gave the two Inuzukas a frightening grin as she activated her bloodline. You wish to hurt my cousin, then, I apologize, but I can't allow that to occur. Fleabags, good night. She uttered those words. She was about to strike when someone yelled in rage. What on earth are you five doing? Mizu looked down to see a very angry Iruka standing at the doorway. Kazuki, Mizu. Store those. Get down. Hana, Kenshin and Hoshi, take your seats right now. Iruka walked over to his desk, his kind smile returning, and he stepped in front of it, smiling, leaning against it, his clipboard in his hands. The five muttered a, "Yes, sensei," and sat down, Hana and Kazuki sitting on either side of Mizu, the twins walking back to the bottom of the section and sitting down, glaring at the three before they sat down. All right, welcome. I am aware that many of you are eager to be here and that your goal is to become a shinobi. Congratulations on your decision. It won't be simple, though we are here to transform you into the greatest shinobi available. However, today's only goal is to assess your level of taijutsu proficiency this year. That will be our primary focus. We'll begin ninjutsu next year. Let's get to know one another first. Though he looked around the room when a little girl with blonde hair raised her hand and said, when I point to you, stand up and give us your name. Sensei. What do we call you? Iruka grinned. All right, sensei is fine. However, Iruka is my name. Iruka sensei is my name. He nodded at the boy with the dark hair beside Mizu and said, now, how about we start with you? The boy got up and surveyed the classroom, staring at everyone as if he were bored without a smile. My name is Kazuki Sangoki. He sat down and pointed to the Hyuga, and Iruka nodded. She got up and smiled politely at the class. My name is Hana Hyuga. After a moment of hesitation, Iruka gestured to Mizu, who got up and courteously glanced around. My name is Mizu Uzumaki, daughter of Naruto Uzumaki. She sat down as every head turned in her direction, wide-eyed and fear on their faces. Mizu glanced to her left and saw Hana giving her a small smile when she looked at Kazuki. He had a single eyebrow raised and a grin on his face. Mizu didn't know why, but she felt very nervous next to him and quickly looked away, pushing her index fingers together. Feeling the heat on her cheeks, Kazuki leaned over to her and whispered in her ear, making her blush even worse. You're very fortunate. Your Oto-san is one of the strongest shinobi in the village. Hey, you're looking a little red. You okay? Iruka heard a loud thump as he turned to put down the clipboard, and when he looked up, he saw a confused Kazuki lifting an unconscious Mizu back into her seat. Kazuki looked a lot like Naruto, with his dark hair flying everywhere and his rather dense outlook on everything, but Mizu looked exactly like a brown-haired Hinata without the Buakugan. Her hair was cut in the same style, which confused both Naruto and Iruka as to how she had chosen the look without seeing any images of Hinata wearing it. It wasn't until Naruto showed her a picture of a 12-year-old Hinata. Kazuki? What took place? Iruka inquired. The boy gave him a perplexed look. I'm not sure. Her face was flushed, so I asked if she was feeling alright. She passed out as I went to take her temperature. Will she be alright? Iruka grinned. He thought, oh Kami, we got another one. She will be alright for now, just leave her alone. Kazuki sighed with relief and nodded. We will now begin learning the fundamentals of taijutsu today. We'll test you tomorrow to see how you're doing now. Let's begin today with a little reading. If you will turn to page 3 of your books. The Hyuga guards smiled warmly at Naruto as he jumped down from the top of the building and landed in front of them. Oh, Naruto-sama. Mizu-chan. Where are you? The larger of the two inquired. At school she aspires to be as ninja as I am. Hey Himura, how are you? All right, last night was the birth of my son. Naruto smiled warmly at the man. Himura, congratulations, what is his name? Himura gave him a smile. My spouse and I chose to defy convention and give him the name Naruto. I hope it's okay with you. No, I feel honored. I hope he becomes as strong as you are. Himura gave him a small bow. Thank you, Naruto-sama. You're welcome. Hisate, how are you today? He questioned the smaller one, who was only 3 years older than Naruto but still larger than him. All right, in order to become a librarian for our clan library, I have been studying. I've already been told by Lord Hyuga that he will permit it if I can demonstrate my abilities to him. Well, I hope the best for you both, Naruto said. I'll see you two later, as he entered the gate and made his way to Hiyoshi's private study. Did we need to tell him? Hisate gave Himura a worried glance. No, we have no right to inform him of the council's actions. It will only make him angry. Why would they do that, though? He will become an enemy of the clan as a result of what they did. Do they fail to recognize the folly of viewing him as an adversary? Regardless, this is the last time he can pass freely through the gates without a signed letter from the Hokage. But he was named the next Hokage. Surely, enough. Let's put the past behind us and act like true Hyuga in our position. 6 massive Hyuga branch members surrounded Naruto as soon as he entered the front door, and he looked around to see that each of them had activated their Byakugan. Dude, today, I don't have time to spar. Lord Hyuga desired to talk to me. One of them said sternly, Uzumaki, you'll come with us. Dude, I truly don't have time. Imusta. You'll come with us now, or we'll make you. They had been hurt by whatever it was, and they didn't like what they had to do. Naruto saw the pain and anger on their faces and didn't want them to suffer because he knew what would happen to them if he escaped. All right, guys, simply stop the cruel routine. You guys are upset about something, and I know I won't like it. Yes, you're right. Let us now express our regret for not protecting them. Feeling sick to his stomach, Naruto followed them as they made their way to the council chamber. I don't hold you guys accountable for anything. Before he entered the chamber, he said, I know you did your best no matter what. When he entered the back of the large room and looked around, he saw the Hyuga council sitting with their backs to him. With smug expressions on their faces, he knew that the 3 Hyuga were Hinata, Hiyashi, and Hanabi, and this made him very anxious, so he stepped up behind them and bowed to the council. I have been told that you would like to see me, honorable council. If the heiress and the head of the clan are present, it must be significant. Who said those things still existed? Said one of the elderly men. I am unable to comprehend. Since Hinata is the heiress and Hiyashi is the head of the clan, I assumed they were members of the main family. No more. They have been sealed and put in the branch house because of your taint. Another family has purchased Hinata, the arrogant man declared. I am now the head of the clan. As he turned to face the Hyuga council, Naruto's eyes widened in shock as he felt anger course through him. He moved to see their faces and felt hot anger fill him like a bucket. He saw the caged bird on each of their foreheads, their eyes on the ground, and Hinata's eyes on the ground, causing tears to fall down her cheeks. You jerks, why? Why would you do this? Struggling to maintain a level voice, he asked. Because we opposed the clan having someone similar to you. Hinata looked up, her face glistening with tears as she turned to face Naruto. We caught wind of Hiyoshi's agreement to allow you to wed her, he said, pointing a finger at her. We knew we had to prevent it, he said, looking sadly at Naruto as he pulled his daughter close. Hinata had just heard that he was going to marry her, and they took that away from her. You sick, repulsive jerks, you're blind and biased. I understand why you despise me. Additionally, you're merely seeking retribution against him for the losses you endured. You're 2 years too late. Then Kyuubi has vanished. He's gone. However, I still am. The councilman got up and accused Naruto with a finger. You have no right to mention its name. From now on, you are not allowed to enter this compound. You will be instantly killed if you enter this place. I'll go, but only if you can respond to this one question. To whom did you present Hinata? Inuzuka Kiba. He was the much better option. Now go. All right, I'm going out. However, Naruto turned and walked out of the room, saying, I'll be back when you die. As the door was slammed shut with enough force to crack the door frame, everyone heard the chill in his voice, and one of the councilmen turned to the clan head in fear. I think we screwed up on this one, the head of the clan had to concur. Suande did a double take when she saw Naruto standing next to her. Fox features rapidly forming. The Anbu burst into the room and sent Suande a questioning look. She shook her head and they left the office. Naruto ran past everyone and everything without stopping. He jumped up and thought he was on course to sail through the open window, but for some reason it was closed instead. He burst through the glass window, shattering it. What's the matter? Ka-san, I need your assistance. I need to know everything about my family, including their clans and laws, he said quickly. What's wrong, Naruto? Hinata, her father, and her sister have been sealed by the Hyuga Council. And Hinata has been sold to Kiba. I must know about my relatives, now. Excellent, you are the son of Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze, Naruto. Your mother was from Whirlpool, and Minato was the fourth Hokage. Little is known about your father's side of the family. He was an orphan in this village, and we only ever knew his name. On the other hand, you might have inherited the Uzumaki blood limit from your mother, the Rasengan, because it has been trained to combat both of these Jujutsus in the event that a fight breaks out. It is on par with the Sharingan and the Byakugan. I'm not sure if you'll have it at all or how it works. It took 15 minutes for Naruto to unstuck his brain, and he stood motionless and numb from shaking. The fourth was my father, and my mother has given me a blood limit? I would most likely faint from shock if I weren't under time pressure. Are you pressed for time? She said softly as she lost consciousness. Naruto, what are you? Naruto took a look at her desk, took out a piece of paper and a pen, and wrote her a letter. He finished in 2 minutes and returned to his human appearance, sealing his Hanyu state until he unlocked it. He then left through the broken window and went to the school, after stopping at his house to gather anything valuable and putting on the body armor Yamato had given him in case he ever decided to join the Anbu. He put on the kitsune mask and hurried to the school. Entering the room just as Iruka was finishing up the chapter, Iruka looked over and cocked his head in confusion, and the entire class was watching this Anbu. Am I able to assist you? After removing his mask, Naruto turned to face Iruka and listened to the class's gasps. Sensei, I have to talk to you privately. Iruka gave him a nod and trailed after him into the corridor. Kazuki noticed this and walked over, while Mizu stared at the door in alarm after seeing her father's anguish. Mizu, what's wrong? As she responded, she continued to look at the door. Kazuki-kun, something's not right, she said quietly. Otuo-san seemed really worried about something. I have no doubt that everything will work out. Let's complete these questions now. Iruka watched as Naruto fidgeted with his headband while leaning against the wall. Naruto, what's the matter? I've never seen you so agitated. Naruto inhaled deeply before meeting his gaze. Sensei, I'm taking Hinata, Hiyashi, and Hanabi with me as I prepare to depart from the village until I return. Please look after Mizu for me. Iruka answered after blinking twice. Naturally, I'll keep an eye on her. Why are you taking them, though? And what happened to make you feel this way? Sensei, after learning that I intended to pop the question to Hinata, the council sealed those 3. Mizu is unable to attend because I'm likely to kill someone tonight. I left a letter outlining everything for the Hokage. Make sure nobody believes she's involved. Please, she shouldn't be held accountable for my transgressions. Iruka approached him and touched his shoulder. I recognize Naruto, you're attempting to reset this. Go now and bid her farewell. I'm hoping you'll return before her graduation. Naruto smiled slightly at him. I'll try. In order to combat the council, I hope to train Hiyashi and Hanabi. Iruka nodded, and they returned to the classroom. Naruto smiled at Mizu as he approached her seat and noticed 2 other people there. I see you made some friends. Hey, this is Okawa-san's cousin Hana. Kazuki-kun is this person. He's a very kind person. When Naruto noticed her flush, he grinned slightly. Mizu-chan, I must leave for some time. I'm bringing Hinata-chan along, though I'm not sure how long until I return. You will remain with Iruka Oji-san. He gave her a hug and released her, saying, be good and train hard. Mizu-chan, it may be a few years, but I promise I'll be back. Pulling his mask over his face, he said, and if any Inuzuka cause you any trouble, smack them with a rolled up newspaper. He turned to see 2 Inuzukas on their feet. Why are kitsunes so superior to dogs? Naruto turned and leapt out the open window, tearing through the streets, saying, because dogs are big, dumb and stupid and don't know when to not try to take a kitsune's mate from him. The entire class laughed at his remark and resumed reading, but Mizu worriedly peered out the window, worried that her Otuo-san was going to do something difficult for him, and she was afraid. Arriving at the Hyuga compound, Naruto jumped from building to building and moved forward when Himura and Hisate blocked his way. I apologize, Uzumaki-sama, we can't let you get by. As he disappeared, he said, I'm sorry, I have to do this then. As they collapsed to the floor, unconscious, he reappeared behind them. Naruto hurried into the house and went directly to Hinata's room, where he heard her muffled screams. Using his superhuman strength, he kicked the door hard enough to pierce the wall on the other side of the room, and when he stepped inside, he was furious beyond measure to see Kiba standing on top of a naked Hinata, attempting to push himself into her. Kiba growled at Naruto before turning back to Hinata. Before he grabbed her by the hair and slammed the back of her head against the wall, knocking her unconscious, he said, I'll deal with you later. He turned just in time to see Naruto's fist slam into his face, lifting him up in the air and throwing him against the wall. He tried to get to his feet, but Naruto was already on him, punching him in the face, chest, and other places he could reach. Kiba tried to fight back, to yell for help, but Naruto's first blow broke his jaw, and after a few seconds, he stopped moving and a pool of blood formed around him. He was not dead, nor would he. He would simply bleed for a short while. Naruto then turned to Hinata, gently put her clothes back on her, and summoned a clone, telling him to get her out of the village without being seen. The clone nodded and departed, leaving him to go to the room down the hall, where he saw Hanabi sobbing. As he approached, he stopped beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder, and she looked up at him in shock. "Hanabi, it's me, Naruto." He assisted her in standing up, and Naruto made another clone. "Come with me." "How is Ne-chan doing?" Kiba was trying to too. "I could hear." Naruto covered her mouth with his hand. "It's all right, she is secure. You can get to her with this clone. Go with him now while I look for your father." Naruto heard the warning sirens as Hanabi nodded, and the clone picked her up, taking her to the rendezvous with the first clone. Gosh, as he sped through the Hyuga compound, Naruto thought, "Ka-san must have woken up earlier than I thought she would." Shortly after, he heard a scream from the head's study, and when he broke down the door, he saw Hiyashi stumble back with his head in his hands and Neji writhing in agony, while the new head stared at him in disbelief. "Who are you?" Forming a Rasengan behind his back, Naruto lowered himself into a low stance and smirked at the head as he said softly, "Your executioner. You believe you can murder me? I don't think. Yes, if you did, you wouldn't be here." "I did not mean that," Naruto said, gradually disappearing from view. "I know I can kill you." "What the fuck?" Before a Rasengan struck the back of his head, that was the last thing he said. Pushing it forward, Naruto watched the man's head twist and warp before finally exploding from the force of the attack. Numb from his first cold-blooded kill, Naruto just stood there, knowing he didn't have to kill the man, but he did. Hiyashi put a hand on his shoulder as if on cue. "You took the necessary action. Take Neji now and leave." Naruto gave a headshake. "No, I'm bringing you along as well. I have Hanabi and Hinata waiting for us in a secure area." Hiyashi gave him a smile. "No, I must stay here. Tenten would kill me if I took Neji as well. I'll put my faith in you to train him." Hiyashi gave Naruto a puzzled look. "What will you train him for?" "Taking back your clan from those bastards." Suande was furious with Kiba when she left the exam room because she had just heard what he had tried to do from Hiyashi and Neji, and she understood why Naruto had done what he had done. As she entered the lobby, she saw the remaining Rookie 9 and Guy's team waiting for answers, and she sighed, knowing that if they didn't hear the corrupt version from the Hyuga Council, they would at least ask him if he was okay. Kiba is fortunate to be alive. He deserved what he got, based on what Hiyashi and Neji told me. What took place? Sakura inquired before his mission tonight. The Hyuga Council learned that Naruto was planning to pop the question to Hinata. For that, they chose to seal Hanabi, Hiyashi, and Hinata before he knocked me out. Naruto approached me and asked me a few questions. A letter was left by him. She handed it to Sakura and said, "Here." They all read it by peering over her shoulder. "To my family and friends. I'm sorry, but I had to do this." The Hyuga Council sealed Hinata and gave her to Kiba. "I can't and won't allow that. I'm taking Hinata and Hanabi and I'm going to train them myself. If he agrees, I'll take Hiyashi with me to help them train. I know the Hyuga Council and the Inuzukas will spread lies about this, but you guys know me. I only ask that you take care of Mizu until we return, so that the village doesn't treat her the way they mistreated me. I'll be back when the girls are strong enough to reclaim their clan, and when I can find a way to remove the caged bird seal. I'll miss you guys, and if Sasuke returns before I do, tell him I want to spar to see how much better he's gotten. See you a few years from now." Naruto, shocked, Sakura finished reading the letter. "They did that?" Hi. Naruto has already left the village with the two. Hiyashi stayed behind, but he did tell Naruto how to remove the caged bird seal. But Naruto still wants to train them in the forgotten Hyuga arts. On the plus side, Naruto acted in accordance to his clan laws. One of the most ancient laws of his clan is that the head of the Uzumaki clan is entitled to right the wrongs done to him and his family. Since he was going to make Hinata a part of that family, it still is in effect. We cannot mark him down as a missing nin or an enemy, so I put him and Hinata down on an indefinite vacation for now." Tenten inquired, "What about the Hyuga clan?" "They've locked their doors to all, including any and all Hyugas outside the compound. Only two of them, a young Hyuga with no parents and Neji, were locked out. The only one allowed to cross the threshold is the Hokage." "How long will they stay like that?" "Until such time that a new head is selected or the heiress returns." "So they locked themselves up? What about Hiyashi?" "He's also locked out." He said that Naruto is planning to train Hanabi and Hinata to take the clan back by force, with Hiyashi and Neji's help. Uncertain that he had heard correctly, Shoji said, Wait, he's going to assault the Hyuga compound? Behind them, a calm voice said, "Hi, and I think we should prepare to attack as well." Suande turned to see Kakashi and Jiraiya approaching them up the hall. "Why?" she inquired. "Because the council was going to back the Uchihas when they were planning the coup. They were going to use the caged bird on everyone in the village except the Uchihas and the Hyuga's main branches. That was their plan," Kakashi replied calmly. Ino said to them, "So why don't we attack now?" "Because we're still 3 members shy of an effective strike force when we go in. We'll be going in hot and the council will have most of the main branch backing them and quite a few members of the cadet branch with them. When we get Naruto, Hinata, and Hanabi, we'll be able to attack and get everyone out alive with better odds." Lee nodded his head in comprehension, saying, "I see. Well, everyone, you got an undetermined amount of time to train, along with your missions to get ready. Everything I have said here is a S-rank secret. Any of you breathe any of this information and I'll execute you myself. We clear?" "Hi. Good, you're dismissed." For fear of seeing Kiba over her once more, Hinata opened her eyes slowly. She opened her eyes fully and instinctively curled into a ball. She discovered her clothes were back on while she was lying on a bed. "At least he had the decency to put my clothes back on me after he raped me," she sighed. When she discovered that Kiba had taken something from her that she intended to give to Naruto, she felt a new wave of tears. She started crying because she was so distraught and hurt after learning that Naruto was going to pop the question. A warm hand touched her shoulders, and she winced. As she was dragged into an embrace, a voice said, "Hey, it's okay, you're safe." When she opened her eyes, Naruto was grinning at her. "Naruto-kun." "Yep, it's me, you're okay now. I probably put Kiba in the hospital for what he tried," he said to her. In relief, she let her voice trail off. "Tried? You mean I'm still a—" "Yeah, you're still a virgin. You can check yourself after Hanabi gets done in the bathroom." "Hanabi? Yeah, I got you both out of there. Your father's going to train Neji for when we take on the council for what they've done." With a sigh of relief, Hinata closed her eyes until she had a memory. The caged bird seal. Naruto gave her a smile. "It's gone. Your Otuo-san told me how to remove it. I also removed Hanabi's as well, so you don't have to worry about it." Grinning, Hinata surveyed the room. "Where are we?" "A place that Ero Sennin bought when I was training with him. He gave it to me because he doesn't have much use for it now. Let's go find something to eat." After giving him a nod, Hinata left the room with him. She hoped he would ask her anyhow. She was also aware that she would have to wait a few years to learn. Mizu had not spoken to Naruto for 4 years. She also missed him. Her graduation was today, and she hoped he would return so she could show him how much she had changed. She gazed out the window with a sorrowful sigh when she felt a familiar presence behind her. She was merely hoping that her Otuo-san would return home. "Hey, Mizu. Today's the day. We get to become ninja, real ninja." Kazuki was sitting next to her, smiling, when she turned around. Her blush came back, and she smiled slightly at him. She had begun to care more for him than just a friend, even though they had been friends for 4 years. She admired him greatly. She didn't have the nerve to tell him, of course. Hana, an Akamichi named Nami, a Nara girl named Rukia, and her friends had harassed her. She was being pressured by all 3 to tell Kazuki, who was simply too stupid for his own good. His friends were an Aburame named Roshi, a Yamanka named Kenshin, a Haruno named Ichigo, and a boy named Yoshi who made Mizu think of Lee. They were all aware of her feelings, but they were too overwhelmed by the circumstances to help the boy. Her voice trailed off. "Hi WW, we do." Kazuki smiled. "Oh, guess what I heard? Anyo WW, what did you hear?" "That somebody important is coming back to the village." Iruka-sensei smiled as she entered the room just as Mizu was about to inquire who it was. Iruka smiled as she glanced at the class list. "Alright boys and girls, today is your final test. All of you will come forward when I call your name and create 3 bushins. First up, Roshi Aburame." Iruka observed as the boy produced 3 bushins with perfection. Iruka gave him his forehead protector, nodded, and noted him down. Iruka found Mizu's name after scrolling through the list. Her problem was the same as her father's: inadequate control of the chakras. She had, however, made an effort to make it better than his was at that age, though it was still not very good. He yelled, "Mizu Uzumaki." Mizu looked at Iruka as she timidly made her way to the front of the class. Sensei? Do they have to be a specific type of clone?" Iruka grinned after doing a double take. Of Kosher, he would have taught her that jutsu since she's just like him. Iruka gave a headshake. "No, you just have to make 3. Mizu made a familiar cross-shaped sal, nodded, and strained her face in focus. She opened her eyes. She shouted, "Shadow Clone Jutsu," and disappeared behind a smoke cloud. Iruka noticed 3 Mizus staring at him after it cleared. "Very good. Mizu, you passed on your first try much better than your father. It took him 3 times to pass, Iruka stated to her. As she accepted her headband, she questioned, really? Hi, now go sit down. Mizu gave a nod and spat in the face of her clone. As the other 2 clones collided, he watched in disbelief as the 3 vanished in a cloud of smoke. She then took a seat and started to flush as Kazuki gave her a little too enthusiastic congratulation. He tripped over his own feet and fell forward after a moment of whooping and bouncing in circles. He would have, at least, if Mizu hadn't taken her place. Rather, he plunged straight into a kiss. Mizu's face turned beet red, and her eyes widened. Kazuki drew back, his face flushed, his own eyes blown wide. Her face was still red and her eyes were still wide when he looked at her in shock. Some of the guys, Ichigo in the lead, snickered at him while a few girls awed and some body wolves whistled. Oh, Kami. I'm so sorry, Mizu-chan. It was an accident. I understand if you're upset. He saw her slowly turn to face the front of the class, her cheeks flushed pink, a savory smile on her face to get his thoughts straight. Kazuki shook his head. He had just given his best friend a kiss. Even worse, he found it enjoyable. He reprimanded himself and took a seat again, avoiding eye contact with her until the embarrassment had passed. He was terrified by the next voice he heard. Well, I told Mizu-chan to make friends, but I didn't think this would happen. When Mizu and Kazuki's heads turned, they noticed a smiling Naruto squatting on the desk in front of them. I know, it's so sweet, Naru-kun, red-eyed. They turned to see Hinata grinning at them from behind. Ne-chan. Is this Naruto Ni-san's daughter? Mizu noticed a grill who resembled Hinata looking at her thoughtfully from her right. Hinata said, Hi, she looks a lot like you though, Ne-chan. Well, that's because Hina-chan is a mother to her. When a repeat occurred for Naruto, he turned to Hinata and smiled. When the boy behind him realized he had left his bag in his previous class, he hurried to his feet and ran into Naruto, knocking him forward. When Naruto felt a kiss, he closed his eyes. He opened his eyes to see Hinata pulling away with a smile. She smiled and remarked, that was how that day should have gone. A weird shimmer caught Naruto's attention, and he closed his eyes as dizziness struck. An eraser struck him in the back of the head just as he was about to speak, wondering what had caused it. Unless you don't want to pass, Uzumaki, please sit down, Iruak yelled. What? Naruto turned to face his friends, who were all staring at him. He realized in horror what had happened when he noticed that they were all 12 once more and that Hinata was on the other side of the room, staring at him. Ha ha. I did it again. Unless I want to cover this story from another angle. This should be the last one. I apologize, but trust me, the story will smooth out, and yes, I'll bring Mizu back, and yes, I'll bring Naruto and Hinata's daughter back as well. Just stick with me. It'll get so much more interesting from here. XD. Kami. Never again. This fucking stinks. Damn it. Whenever something positive occurs, whoops. Reset time. Oh no, you can't let him remain content. I can tell you're thinking this because I'm that good. Keep reading and I'm not arrogant. That would be too nice of us, he thought. He sat down, pondered all he had been told about Hanius, and realized what had happened. If the container had taken the demon's powers carelessly, their bodies would have started to disintegrate. To protect against this, the chakra creates a temporal disturbance and sends the consciousness back to a particular moment in their lives before they made the mental connection with their demons. Naruto cursed his luck, wondering why it had done that then, at that very moment, and why it had sent him back to the point where he had to do it all over again. He closed his eyes in rage, and when he opened them, he found himself in a grand hall full of strangers, and his gaze fell on the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, who smiled kindly. Uzumaki. Naruto, more than anything he had ever heard, her voice soothed Naruto as she said, Welcome to my court. You're Kami? She gave a head nod. I apologize for having to start over, but your body and mind were gradually failing. Even though Kyuubi was able to save you, the Akatsuki's actions caused serious psychological harm. In addition, I did this as a favor to a significant other. Who? Behind him, a voice said, as, when Naruto turned around, he saw his father approaching him while a woman with a bright red hair stood next to him, both of them grinning. Otuo-san? You mean Okawa-san? They gave a head nod. All right, Naruto, I'm going to return you. I'm just sending you, though Kyuubi has requested to remain here but to give you his abilities and powers. Do you agree? Kami politely asked him. Hey, yes, I do. I only have one query. Furthermore, it's not just about, why are we here? Or, what is the nature of the universe? Why you made me so stupid is something I want to know. I mean, I didn't realize how much Hinata liked me until the Akatsuki captured me. Kyuubi put me in a conscious dream, and I had to reset it 3 times. For that reason alone, because I knew you would have a difficult life, I also knew that in order to succeed, you would need to have a strong heart. Something went wrong. But I also wanted Hinata to inform you when you turned genin it was thwarted by her will. Additionally, Mr. You are a moron, she noted. I made you observant. To defend himself, Naruto held up his hands. All right. Naruto looked at his parents and remarked, I suppose I'll see you guys later. His father ruffled his hair as his mother stepped forward and touched his shoulder. His mother warned him to be safe. Naruto, Minato smiled as she said, and make us proud. Yes, I will. I'm prepared. Iruka was shouting in front of Naruto when he opened his eyes. Should sleep at home, not class. Naruto. Hi, sensei, I apologize. He smiled at Iruka, saying, I've just been practicing the bushin, trying to get it right this time. The man let out a sigh. All right, Naruto, feel free to go home and prepare for tomorrow's test. I'll buy you some ramen if you pass. Well, ramen is fine, but is there anything else we could get? Like hamburgers, perhaps? Iruka paused, then grinned, thinking that burgers would be less expensive than ramen. Yes, anywhere you like if you succeed. After sorting through those memories, Naruto saw several inconsistencies, such as the fact that he and Hinata had been gone for 2 years but had a 2-year-old daughter when they should have been gone for 3 years, not 2, or that Neji's gentle fist was blowing holes in people when it damaged organs, not the skin. Naruto nodded and trudged home, feeling confused and thinking he was going crazy, but he knew that what he had experienced was real and not a dream or anything.